exciting episode of WURD Radio. This is Evening Words. I'm Nick Taliaferro on a Monday afternoon. How in the world are you doing? I hope you're doing better than I am. I got to tell you, it's been a really busy weekend, and it's going to be a really busy week. And I am hoping that, ladies and gentlemen, we can get through it with style and aplomb. On the other side of the console, and we're taking things a little bit differently today, is the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Eric Nixon. Let's see if I can give him a little applause from my end. And I cannot. I tell you, I cannot.
Not better than mine, sorry.
Well, anyway, that's where the mouth flops. Eric's on the other side of the console. Should you happen to call in, first voice that you will hear, and I hope you treat him well because he is the pride of Hampton Institute. We'll be with you all the way up until 7 o'clock. Coming along at 7 o'clock, we save space for Sincerely Sarita, who'll be coming your way with a great show. As always, always save just a little bit of space at the end of your day for Sincerely Sarita. Okay, there are so many things going on, and today I'm asking for your assistance. I'm really going to need your help today because I want to talk about some topics that I know have meaning to you, just as they have meaning to me. And very often we don't talk about these things, but they're very, very important. The one thing we want to talk about a little bit later on today is the issue of National Coming Out Day. I don't know how many of you know that last week on the 11th, I believe it's the same day as Columbus Day. I wonder if there's anything to that coincidence, is National Coming Out Day, where individuals who have a different sexual orientation acknowledge that truth about themselves to others who are a part of their constellation of concerns. Now, National Coming Out Day is marked around the world, and there have been some pretty famous people who came out this past time around. Niecy Nash was one of them. There are quite a few people who came out. But in the African-American community, the idea of a person acknowledging their sexual orientation as being different is not something that's always been smiled upon. In fact, it has been greeted with derision, rejection, sometimes downright hostility. Long before Bill Clinton said, "Don't ask, don't tell," in the Black community, and particularly in the Black church, we had mastered the art of maintaining that level of secrecy. I want to talk about that a little bit later on today, a little bit later on, and maybe around 4:30 or so. We want to spend a few moments on that one, okay? But also, at 5 o'clock, we want to talk about something that has a lot of meaning to me. The most significant public event of my life was the Million Man March. And on the 16th, last week, I wasn't on air at the time, so I couldn't do it. But on the 16th, we spent a little time remembering that 25 years ago, that extraordinarily momentous event took place in Washington, D.C., with 1 million African-American men in attendance. At 5 o'clock, we want to talk about that. Now, in the 6 o'clock hour, we want to talk about the fact that President Trump is not only a liar, but he's throwing people under the bus again, so we'll get to that. But these are the things we've got in mind. Now, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to be joined by a couple of brothers who will help me to reprise that extraordinary event in Washington, D.C. back in 1995. I have never been a part of a public event with the level of gravity and significance of the Million Man March. Never. I doubt if I ever will be a part of a public event that has that level of significance. And so we want to talk about it. I want to talk about what it meant to you then, what it means to you now, what distance we may have traveled, and where we need to go. These are the important aspects of the story, okay? Now, as we get prepared for this election, we are very much aware of the fact that we live in an America that has become sharply divided by political ideology, but also, once again, the issue of race has reared its ugly head. It's hard to believe that just over a decade ago, we were all applauding ourselves for being a nation that could get beyond the borders and the framework of the racism, America's original sin, and that we could live in a, quote, post-racial age. You remember, Barack Obama was elected president, and everybody was talking about standing around the hillside with hands clasped, singing Kumbaya. as we remembered the bad old days when we divided ourselves according to race. We thought that it was all over, all said and done, but then we elected another president by the name of Donald John Trump, and for better or for worse, let's say for worse, we found ourselves having to deal with the ugly issue of race again, far beyond what we ever thought we'd have to deal with. Well, we want to talk a little bit about that later on, but more importantly, Channel 6 News is doing a docu-series on the issue of living while black. Now, we did that here at WURD a couple of years ago, but Action News is taking up that baton, and they're going to do a docu-series, Living While Black, starting this week, I believe starting at just around 5:30. And in a couple of moments, we'll be joined by one of their leading anchors, a woman that I've come to really appreciate as far as her ability to deliver the news with a level of personality and style. Tamala Edwards will be joining us in just a few moments to talk about that docu-series, and we'll spend just a few moments speaking about that with her, and we'll talk a little bit about it amongst ourselves. All of that kind of stuff will be taking place right here on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro from now until 7 o'clock this evening. I do remind you that we'll be talking about the Million Man March. We'll be talking about our president lying and throwing people under the bus. And we'll be talking about the coming out issue, the coming out party. There's one other thing that if we can get to it today, I'd like to spend a little bit of time speaking to you about, and this is a very important issue, and that is the issue of the death penalty. Now, the reason I said I want to spend some time speaking to you about the issue of the death penalty is because for the first time in 57 years, the United States federal government, under the direction of the Trump administration, is planning to execute its first woman in 52 years, in 57 years, rather. I'll tell you more about her crime in a few moments, but I'm wondering how you feel about a woman being executed for the first time in 57 years, and we'll talk about that in just a moment or two, okay? Folks, we've got a whole lot to share with you today, and I'm hoping that you will stand by and be a part of all of the dialogue as we spend the time talking back and forth, chopping it all up, going over the important issues here on 900 AM, 96.1 FM, WURD radio. While we are just talking about things, we want to send out congratulations to Greg Corbin. Greg Corbin, one of Philadelphia's finest poets, is now Baba. He's daddy. Congratulations to you, Greg. I hope that you and your beautiful child will have many, many days together of joy and happiness. And I hope that you get some sleep between now and the time that your baby is 13, at which time they will give you a new reason to stay awake until they are 16 and they take the keys to your car, at which time they will give you another reason to stay awake. I am hoping that between now and then, you're able to get some sleep. All right? Okay, congratulations to you, Greg. And of course, more importantly, congratulations to the mother, because she did all the work. All right, good people, let us divert ourselves right now and spend some time speaking to a young lady from the great state of Texas, making good here in the city of Philadelphia. She's a continuous contributor to Inside Story on Channel 6 on Sundays, but more importantly, she's the co-anchor of the morning news from 4:30 to 7 on Action News here in the city of Philadelphia. Please make welcome, of course, Tamala Edwards. Tamala, thank you for joining us today, and we appreciate the fact that you guys are getting ready to do this docuseries.
Well, first of all, I got to say I appreciate you calling me a young lady. That's like getting carded these days. That's always a good start. It's been a minute. But more seriously, Nick.
I love your sense of humor. Let me tell you, you and Matt and Karen really make the morning palatable. Thank you so much for all you do.
Well, you know, we love our viewers, and you always are weighing in with tweets, and, you know, it's like a member of the family. We do appreciate that.
Not a problem.
You know, what I want people to, they may have started to see the commercials. Your Action News this week at 5:30 is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to. For months, some of us across the ABC-owned stations across the country have been working on a special project called Our America Living While Black. And I think, you know, it was in response to the energy in the community, outside of the community, in the wake of what happened with George Floyd, where it felt as though there was this big exhale of pain and trauma in the community, but also in the external community, people saying, I didn't know, I want to know more, rather than looking away. You know, the Black feeds are full of pain and hurt, but your white friends are talking about rosé all day. Instead, everybody was in the same place. And so we put out a call across the stations. We got in 116 ideas, which we've culled down to about 15, 20 stories. And every day you will get to see a different theme, pretty much birth to end of life. Today you're going to hear about maternal morbidity, why Black mothers and children start out at a disadvantage in terms of how far they've got to go to get care, and the fact that their care may not be what it ought to be. Tomorrow we'll talk about education. Wednesday, income inequality. Thursday, a tie to the past and hopes for the future. And on Friday, a look at policing and reform. And these are 15 minutes, and it's not voice of God, here's an anchor telling you what's going on and choosing to tell you what the story is. All you're going to mainly hear are people telling these stories in their own voices, because Blackness is not one thing. It's complicated. It's many different experiences, with many of us coming to this moment from different places. But as you watch the whole, it gives you a very different sensibility of what's going on. And then that will culminate on Sunday in a 1-hour documentary.
I'm looking forward to that. I have to ask, and from a personal perspective, I know that your personal life always informs reporting that you do. You were born in the South, in Georgia, raised in Texas. What was your experience growing up Black in that part of the country that lies beneath the Mason-Dixon line, particularly when we talk about Georgia and Texas?
You know, this is why I think I wanted to do this project and arrived at it with both urgency and sadness. You know, my parents were the civil rights generation. My mother remembered school books that said new, good, fair, poor, negra, with facts that were out of date. Wow. My father remembered Houston being the town that civil rights rolled over, because they made it really clear that they were not going to allow the protests and other actions you saw elsewhere. And he'll tell you in a minute about the time he gave Stokely Carmichael a shirt. But they thought, you know, my life was so different. There I was going to integrated schools, which they never did. There I was talking about all these different experiences. And I remember being a kid, and he would talk about race and she would talk about race, and they'd talk about, you know, I could not imagine you can't sit here, or you can't drink out of this water fountain, or you can't have this job, or you can't go to this place. And I just remember going to college, and we were lit. I mean, we were going to be the generation that broke down all the doors. Everything was possible. And if you had told me, especially after, I didn't think that I'd see a Black president in my lifetime, certainly not till I was an old woman, maybe. But if you had told me that we would get there, and then I would find myself not listening to my parents' stories with sympathy, but with empathy, and with the same fears and the same, where are we going, I wouldn't have been able to believe it. But you know, what I knew is there's so many things that you notice in life, but you don't know why. And that's what I brought to this project, that people go through life and they know race exists, and, you know, we're around each other, but not with each other. Black people are there. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on. Maybe one day it'll get better. But if you tell people what's going on and there's a place for them to show up, I do believe they will pull up. And what I learned you know, I was like, if we pin this to slavery or Jim Crow, everybody's going to say that's a million years ago. If we just tell you, hey, here's this guy's story, people will say, well, those were his choices, or he just got unlucky. We need to tell people how and why we all fit into this moment. And what I found and learned was there's so many decisions that keep being made. Like, we don't have to go way back. We can go to things that were created within our lifetime. Social Security, do you know how they passed it? We think Social Security, all old people get it. Southern senators would only sign on if you excluded agrarian and domestic workers, and guess who that was?
Absolutely.
So now I know why my grandparents, who worked every day of their lives in menial jobs, rubbing their arthritic hands, now I know why if their kids didn't take care of them, they wouldn't have anything, while other people's grandparents had a bigger check to rely on. GI Bill. Yes, black servicemen were entitled eventually, but when it really mattered, the banks would not back the loans and the colleges wouldn't give them a seat. Mortgages. The greatest amount of the American middle class was powered by being able to put a percentage down, get a house. It counts towards your wealth. You can take a loan out against it. You can pay for a college education. It appreciates in value. You leave it to your heirs. They wouldn't give them to us. So we get stuck in neighborhoods that are smaller, on toxic land, hemmed in by freeways and bridges, and then our value, they will not appreciate it appropriately, and then they wonder why you can't catch up.
Let me reintroduce you so that people will know who's sharing these salient points. Tamala Edwards is co-host of Channel 6's Action News morning show and contributor to Inside Story. She is a part of the team that's putting together a docuseries that will take us through the week on Channel 6 called Our America Living While Black. And final question for you, Tamala. You've been more than kind with your time, and I'm looking forward to this. You have two sons, and we allowed ourselves the heady moment of belief that we were past the need to talk about some of the toxic issues of race and racism, but you have two sons now, and as they grow up, what are your fears and concerns for them as they live while black?
Ooh,
yeah, that's the tough one.
My hope is that, this is why I wanted to do it this way, because if we keep making these decisions rather than assuming, well, that's just the way it is, we get to do something different. When two applications come in, we can ask why we're giving one person one rate and somebody a different rate. We can ask why we're policing a certain way. We can ask why we're treating patients differently. And my hope is that people in watching this will say, as a woman says about her autistic son, whom she's taking to the police department, and saying, please don't shoot him. If you find him, he cannot respond to your commands. She says it's exhausting to be black in America. And my hope is that everybody's exhausted and that we will say we're going to make some different decisions such that my sons will fulfill the promise of what I thought I was in for, which is, oh, my old man, there he goes again talking that stuff. And now I recognize it. I'm hopeful that my children and certainly my grandchildren will say, if we could put a man on the moon, if we might one day be able to cure cancer, what nation has a greater possibility and a greater need and owes a greater debt to his promise than to turn this corner? Will I have to talk to them about it at some point? Sure, I will. Right now, they're little and innocent, and you're trapped between wanting to wrap them up and not necessarily have to expose them to it. But I know what it is to have a little voice in the background listening to NPR say to me, why are all the black people getting shot? And I got to tell you another thing that kills me. I don't want our kids to keep having to hear black stories as only strife. Our experience in this life and in this world is so much bigger. There's black joy, there's black exuberance, there's black excellence, there's black dreaming, there's black audacity. And we are entitled to that as well. I want these problems solved so that our children get to stand in that and talk more about the greatness of what they can be, rather than the fears that we have had to pass down from generation to generation.
You've been listening to Channel 6's Tamala Edwards. She's the co-host of Channel 6's Morning News and contributor to Inside Story. Also, she's helping to bring to Channel 6 throughout this week a docuseries called Our America Living While Black. It airs starting at 5:30, 15 minutes each day, and then an hour show on Sunday. Did I get that right, Tamala?
You sure did.
I'm hoping it's here. We will give our listeners leave to check it out with one ear while they stay with us with
Nick,
the other.
I also want to point out I've written a very personal essay that you will see on Channel 6 part of it tonight on the 4 o'clock news right now probably, but you can also see a longer version of that on 6abc.com.
I'll make sure, send me the link so that I can make sure we share it, if you would.
We'll do that.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time, and I appreciate all that you do. Our best, not only to you, but to Matt and to Karen and the rest of the Channel 6 team, and thanks for spending time with us.
Will do. All the best.
You got it. All righty. That's Tamala Edwards, ladies and gentlemen. The docuseries is called Our America Living While Black. I'm so grateful to see many of our news outlets and many of our other institutions taking a look at the issue of race and racism. These are things that are a part of the world in which we're living. Why don't we keep with this theme as we as we begin to talk a little bit about the Million Man March, I am still, 25 years later, there's a thrill that goes through me as I remember that extraordinary day that took place 25 years ago in the capital of our nation. At the time, I was working for another talk station. Well, you all know which one it was, WHAT at the time. And we were right there in the middle of handling our business, getting people there. When I come back, I want to talk more about the Million Man March. Stay with us, folks. You're listening to WURD AM 900, 96.1 FM. This is Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, and I'll be right back after this.
Recovery starts with a call. Pennsylvania's Substance Use Disorder Hotline is staffed by real people who are trained to help. They're here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They'll get you or your loved one into treatment regardless of your access to insurance. If you or someone you know is suffering from addiction, call 1-800-662-HELP. Recovery starts with a call.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM. WURDradio.com.
Reverend Tyler, with November 3rd around the corner, do you know how you'll be voting this year?
Dr. Callahan, I requested my mail-in ballot, and I'm returning it the day it comes in the mail.
That's perfect, because we can't leave anything to chance this year.
Already received your mail-in ballot? You're just a few simple steps away from turning your mailbox into a ballot box. Here's how. After selecting your candidates, place your marked ballot into the small secrecy envelope and seal it. It's a 2-envelope process, so then you'll place the small secrecy envelope into the larger one. Make sure to seal that one too. Sign and date it, and then it's as simple as dropping it in your mailbox, no postage necessary, or returning it to your county election office. And if you still want to sign up to vote by mail or find out where to drop off your mail-in ballot, visit votespa.com.
I'm not waiting until November 3rd. I'm returning my mail-in ballot the day it comes in the mail.
Or you can return your ballot to your county election office.
I've got my plan. Make your plan to vote today.
Paid for by Power Interfaith.
Joe Biden fought hard to pass Obamacare. It gave over 20 million Americans access to health care and protected people with pre-existing conditions from greedy insurance companies. But Trump and Republicans want to get rid of it. Even in the middle of a pandemic, we can't let that happen. Protect your health care. Vote Biden. Our lives depend on it.
Paid for by AFSCME People, which is responsible for the content of this ad. AFSCMEPeople.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Tune in every Saturday at 4 p.m. for the Did You Know Show with host Bryant Green, right here on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Busy afternoon on the Philly roads. This report is sponsored by United Healthcare. Starting on 95 northbound, bumper-to-bumper traffic from Chichester Avenue to the Commodore Barry Bridge. A crash in that stretch that has been cleared. Further north on 95, that jams the Vine Expressway to Bridge Street with a crash in the left lane. Southbound 95, stop and go from Cottman to Bridge Street through the construction zone. Jams again as you head from about Bridge Street down to Girard Avenue. And it's jammed from Ridley Park to 476 with the crash now on the shoulder. Vine Expressway eastbound, jamming A Street into 95, westbound Vine, that's stop and go from the Ben Franklin Parkway to the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill eastbound, it is heavy as you go from 202 to Gulf Mills, again 476 into Gladwin, and after that you're tapping the brakes at the Vine Expressway. Westbound on the Schuylkill, jams up University to 30th Street through construction, left lane is blocked. Then you're heavy City to Belmont and Gladwin out to Conshohocken. Boulevard northbound, jamming as well, Schuylkill Expressway to Broad Street. Bridges over the Delaware River, they look good. In South Jersey, stop and go 42 southbound, the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. You're jamming on 295 southbound from 30 into 42.
United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans come with a lot to take advantage of. Visit AdvantageWow.com to learn more. That's AdvantageWOW.com to learn more about United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans.
For more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. I'm Brandon Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey, back with you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you for joining us 28 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock here on WURD, Evening Words. I'm Nick Taliaferro. I had mentioned earlier, and I thank Tamala Edwards for joining us. She is one of the most pleasant people in news. Trust me, everybody, especially in television news, not everybody's pleasant. Not everybody. But she is genuinely pleasant 125% of the time. I appreciate it. I got to tell you, I had mentioned the fact that we were talking about National Coming Out Day, and I knew it would be delicate because we live in a world where people who are different, especially in our current context, people who are different often find a challenging time of not only accepting themselves publicly, but being accepted. And you know what? I tell you what, why don't we spend this half hour getting into that a little bit? Those of you who want to talk about the Million Man March, hold off until 5, because I want to explore this and ask some of my friends why there's such a vitriolic, violent reaction to the idea that someone might be different sexually. I want to ask that. Now, the reason why is because I just found out, I brought it up, and I had 2 individuals lined up to come on the show today who, this must be beat up Nick Monday or make Nick sweat Monday, but they were both former players in the NFL. And I wanted them to come on and share their experience as to what it was like to come out. If you are, cisgender, that's the term that gets used a lot, and, or heterosexual is a term that you're more familiar with, then you're probably, let me tell you what it's like. Being cisgender, being heterosexual is sort of like being white in America. You don't have to think about your existence. You take for granted that your existence is an acceptable thing. You don't worry about people watching you, or you don't worry about what level of acceptance is going to come your way. It's just the normal thing. But if you are born in this world and you somehow or another find yourself facing the issue of being attracted to another gender or genders, and I'm not trying to spell out anybody else's existence here. I'm simply trying to suggest that there are people who come into this world or who live in this world with a different sexual orientation, and they have a right to be here. Now, those individuals find themselves at times facing hostility, rejection, and so forth. They've come up with National Coming Out Day. I'm not telling you whether or not, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm saying it's a thing, and that there are people who exist that way. And folks, while we're talking about it, we live in a world where the contributions of people who are not heterosexual or cisgendered, where their contributions have added richly to the world in which you live. And for my church friends, and let me be real about this, for my church friends, let me tell you something. A whole lot of the gospel music that you enjoy would not exist were it not for people whose sexual orientation, who were very different from yours, if they did not make a contribution. And you stand up and lustily sing a lot of those songs and enjoy, and sometimes right next to people that you may not know. Now, the reason I bring it up is because someone called into the studio and got into Eric's world about my bringing it up, about talking about having people coming out and so forth. This is not the Nick Taliaferro come out party. I'm not asking people to come out. I'm saying that it happened last week, and I wanted to discuss it from the Black perspective because I know, and you know, that in the African-American community, there are some real issues about people and sexual orientation, especially in the church world. Well, this person called and identified themselves as being LGBTQ. And I may have gotten the letters mixed up there. That often happens. I get a little bit turned around sometimes with my letters. But they identified as being a part of the community that is different in sexual orientation from the mass of the mass of the heterosexual population. And they were angry about the fact that I was talking about folks coming out. I did not think that the person who would be angry with me or the person who would take umbrage with my speaking about this would be someone who was a part of a sexual orientation that would normally be considered to have a need to, quote, come out, unquote. I am wondering why it bothers people so much. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that there are people who read the Bible and they say, well, Nick, you're supposed to be a minister, and as a minister of the gospel, you ought to understand the Bible says that's an abomination. Well, it does. It also says eating pork's an abomination, eating shrimp's an abomination, wearing certain mixed clothing is an abomination. I mean, astrology is an abomination. I mean, the same Bible that declares that an abomination declares a lot of other things an abomination. So when you want to get onto your abominable snowman kick, let's include all that, okay? But getting beyond that, why is it that people are so angry and upset about what somebody else might do with their genitalia when you're not watching them? Why does it anger you so? I'm not asking why you disagree with it. I'm asking why you get so angry. I'm asking why you get so turned out. I didn't mean to use that term that way, but I'm asking why it just grates you so. That someone, I don't know, I wonder about that. And for those of you who are on my side of the Christian spectrum, you recognize that there's statements that are made by the Lord that says that, you know, when you get to heaven, that you're like the angels of God, neither marrying nor giving in marriage. Now, I'm not sure exactly what that's going to mean completely, but the idea that it suggests is that gender loses a level of significance on the other side of eternity. Did I say that? Yes, I did, because that appears to be what it is. Now, I'm not sure exactly what it means, but I know that there are a lot of people who think that, I remember somebody saying, look, if you plan to be sexual, do it on this side of eternity, because on the other side, all you do is sit there and pat and chat. I don't know. So I'd like to know, let me just, you tell me, why does it make you so angry? Why is it such a challenge to simply allow another person to exist who is not harming you? I'd like to know that. I would like to know. All right, now that's the first thing. And from the 5 o'clock hour, we will get back to the Million Man March. For sure, I want to talk about that. I want to thank Minister Rodney Muhammad, who is trying his level best he tried really hard to help me get Minister Louis Farrakhan on the line. Minister Farrakhan is having a couple of challenges currently, and he's not going to be able to join us today, trying to help us to get Minister Benjamin Chavis, who actually was the coordinator and the organizer of the event back in 1995. I remember having many conversations with him back in that day because as a part of WHAT, we really showed up big. Let me tell you, Philadelphia was the lead dog on the sled team in pulling together the Million Man March. And nobody was bigger at that time than Johnny Sample. I forget how many buses were organized through the Johnny Sample Sports Club, but Philadelphia showed up huge down in Washington, D.C. It was an extraordinary event that I will never, ever forget. And at 5 o'clock, we'll be bringing it back. I really want to get some of your feedback on it. I've asked a couple of people to assist. Alex P.A., who is the founder and the executive director of Rising Suns, as a younger brother. I want to find out what it is that he remembers about the Million Man March and how he views it retrospectively. Because there are a lot of people today who are alive and doing very great things for whom the Million Man March is a historic artifact. But then I wanted to talk with someone who was a bit older about the Million Man March. And I reached out to one of our older brothers who is truly a significant person. I won't say his name in case he can't make it. I don't want to make it appear as though he left us in the lurch or anything like that. But I asked him to join us so we can have a kind of cross-generational conversation as to what the Million Man March did for us at that time, what it means for us today, and what distance we still have to cover. These are the important parts, okay? All right, everybody. Well, I'll tell you, since that gentleman, Eric, I'm assuming that gentleman did not call back as of yet, and that no one else has called back regarding the issue of National Coming Out Day. So why don't we do this? We will take the next few moments and spend some time listening to the people who make it possible for us to speak with you, and then we'll come back and get right back into the conversation here on 900 AM WURD 96.1 FM. This is Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro and with you, and we'll continue the conversation after this.
As our nation battles a pandemic and economic downturn, the health and financial security of voters over 50 are on the line. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. From preventing cuts to Social Security to protecting Medicare to lowering prescription drug prices, you deserve to cast your vote on issues that matter to you, and AARP Pennsylvania is here to help. We want to make sure that you know all of your voting options and that all Americans, from working parents to family caregivers to seniors in nursing homes, can vote safely whether they choose to vote from home or in person. To learn more about how AARP Pennsylvania is fighting to protect voters 50 plus and how to make your voice heard this November, visit aarp.org/PA votes. Paid for by AARP.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear, this election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. Will protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body, root out systemic racism in our justice system, and pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Your success doesn't have to wait. It's time for a new year and a new you. And with Community College of Philadelphia, your goals are within reach. Our programs are a direct line to today's most sought-after careers, and you can skip the debt without sacrificing the quality of your education. Choose Community College of Philadelphia this spring semester, and you're choosing an education that you will value for years to come. Classes will be offered online, and all admissions and student support services are available remotely. Don't pay more at another college to earn the same credits from home. Start your success story with Community College of Philadelphia. Join us for a virtual open house on Thursday, November 5th at 6 p.m. To get started, RSVP at ccp.edu/open house. Your success starts at ccp.edu.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Busy afternoon on the Philly roads. This report is sponsored by United Healthcare. Starting on 95 northbound, bumper-to-bumper traffic from Chichester Avenue to the Commodore Barry Bridge. A crash in that stretch that has been cleared. Further north on 95, that jams the Vine Expressway to Bridge Street with a crash in the left lane. Southbound 95, stop and go from Cottman to Bridge Street through the construction zone. Jams again as you head from about Bridge Street down to Girard Avenue. And it's jammed from Ridley Park to 476 with the crash now on the shoulder. Vine Expressway eastbound, jamming A Street Street into 95, westbound Vine, that stop and go from the Ben Franklin Parkway to the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill eastbound, it is heavy as you go from 202 to Gulf Mills, again 476 into Gladwin, and after that you're tapping the brakes at the Vine Expressway. Westbound on the Schuylkill, jams up University to 30th Street through construction, left lane is blocked. Then your heavy City to Belmont and Gladwin out to Conshohocken. Boulevard northbound, jamming as well, Schuylkill Expressway to Broad Street. Bridges over the Delaware River, they look good. In South Jersey, stop and go 42 southbound, the Walt Whitman Bridge down to 295. You're jamming on 295 southbound from 30 into 42.
United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans come with a lot to take advantage of. Visit AdvantageWow.com to learn more. That's AdvantageWow.com to learn more about United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans.
For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brandon Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
All right, folks, we're back with you here on your favorite conversation station, 900 AM, 96.1 FM WURD, Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Glad that you can join us. Hopefully you'll stay with us all the way up to 7 o'clock, and then you'll extend yourself a little bit further and save a little space for us. Sincerely, Sarita, always the best for you right here in Two-Way Talk on WURD. We're going to get right to the phone lines. And really, you know, a lot of you are afraid to even talk about this subject. I don't understand men who can't talk about the issue of sexuality unless they're talking about trying to conquer somebody somewhere. That's weak to me. I said it's weak to me, ladies and gentlemen. I ain't scared of you. All right, let's go to Keith in North Philadelphia. Keith, thank you for your call. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick. How are you?
No, well, Keith, I'm trying to do all right, my friend. How you feeling?
We need you to rubber stay rub again, baby. You know what I mean?
You know, I can barely hear you, Keith. Let me see if we can turn that up a little bit there. Try that again for me.
I said we're going to need you to rubber stay rub again. Look, the first time it never go right anyway for nobody. You got to do it again, man. You represent the people.
Man, I got to tell you something, man. I told people years ago, if I ever run for office, shoot me in my sleep. I wish somebody had. But it was a worthwhile effort. But what do you have to say about this topic? I mean, National Coming Out Day, black people, the black church, and folks who have a different sexual orientation from the majority of folks who are basically what we would call heterosexual or cisgender.
Look, I'm a heterosexual man. I've been married for 17 years. You know, and you know, coming from somebody that kind of protected, gay guys in my community, because I was, former, associated with a gang, and I protected, so I always never wanted anybody to get bullied for anything. Right. You know what I mean? Especially that preference, why bully somebody? But I don't think it's just the black community is. I don't think they're biased towards the LGBT community.
You don't?
No, I don't. What I think is the end game that even the church leaders are looking at is being a protected class and also having to be a special community, which I don't think the gay community qualifies for that. Because, the black gay community, they can follow along with the sons and daughters of slaves being a special class. As a group, we need to be a special class. Because the gay community, nobody hung them from trees and nobody drug them down the street like they did the African-American Negro to come out of slavery.
I would have to, it may not be in the same numbers, but Keith, I'd have to disagree with you there. There were, not only did they hang them from trees, some were burned. Trust me, there was a great number of black gay people who were prosecuted and persecuted, not only for being black, but also for not being gender conforming.
Well, that's true, and not in the numbers, but they shouldn't get in front of, we have to be very careful as us, as sons and daughters of slaves, keep allowing demographics, right? People.
Do you perceive that by saying that fairness and justice and equity for people who are gay, that somehow or another that it would mitigate or weaken the same claim for people who are black?
No, but we can't be the moral whipping post. We can't be the moral. We're the moral compass. The African sons and daughters of slaves. We're the moral compass for the world. Even Jews, we're the moral compass. Right? We take the beatings, right? We take the discrimination, and we open the doors for white women, the Jewish community, the illegal alien community. We open the doors for them. And they prosper, but they don't look back. They don't look back at us. They don't fight for reparations. They don't fight for reparations.
Well, Keith, hold on. And I appreciate your call, but let me push back just a little bit, and then we'll go to Flood in just a moment. I mean, nobody fought harder for racial equality than James Baldwin. I mean, James Baldwin fought hard. Well, wait a minute. Let me check myself. Nobody fought harder for equality than Bayard Rustin. Do you realize that there would have been no March on Washington without Bayard Rustin? There may not have been a Martin Luther King as we know him without Bayard Rustin. And he was a gay man from Chester, Pennsylvania, who was the chief organizer and architect of the March on Washington. He was the organizer. He was the person who kind of pulled it all together. So let's not make that artificial separation. Justice is justice, and you apply it to different classes and different groups, but justice, the demand for justice is the demand for justice. Let's get back to a gentleman that I know and admire, Flood, the drummer. Chris, good to have you, man. Welcome to WURD.
Good afternoon, sir. You're up to some good trouble this afternoon.
Am I in good trouble? I better be careful marching across bridges then.
I'm surprised you took on this conversation. It's interesting, and I forgot how strongly opinionated some of the words callers can be.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Nick.
No, please, no. Now let me get your point, man. I'll be here all day.
I've often asked the same question when I think about, gay bashing. I grew up, and I remember, they used to play this game, whether you were gay or straight, called Got a Body or Catch a Body, where people would just go around and jumping people, and they just did it for sport. But then, of course, you had the gay bashing, where people would see an effeminate young man or effeminate boy or effeminate boy, and they would jump him out of sport too. I think part of it is a kind of projection, right? Some people who get overly animated about coming out or how other people live in their truth and their sexuality, I think they're triggered by it because they're not living their truth and their own sexuality, right? But I think another part of that is just this undiagnosed narcissistic complex that so many people suffer from, and they're rooted in religion. They have an inflated sense of self-importance, so much so that they think their opinion of how someone else lives their life matters, right? They are completely unreasonable in many cases. They have a disregard for other people's feelings, and so they will say things and use religion to disregard them and denigrate them. And they have, again, a sense of entitlement, that they are entitled to tell you how to live your life, but not vice versa. Those are all the makeups of a narcissist, and those are the types of people who tend to insert themselves into a conversation that they have nothing to do with. And the question is why, and I don't have the answer to why outside of my own, full diagnosis, but there is something to it. And the people who are uncomfortable by it have to do some self-reflection and self-analysis, because it's not normal to insert yourself into a position in a place where you're uncomfortable.
No pun intended on that. I thought I let it lay there for a moment. Look,
does that make sense at all?
It makes a great deal of sense, and it is something that I've wondered about. Look, I'm a minister. When I was a young minister, I had some thoughts, and I had to question myself. I had to ask myself, why do I feel that I have to be so rabidly opposed to a person? Now, I can tell you I could say it appears that this is what the Bible says. I can say this appears to be the ideal according to God. But why am I so angry with a person because they are who they are? That's what I could not answer for myself.
And have you still not been able to answer that for yourself?
Well, the answer that you just gave helps. I think a lot of it is projection. I think a lot of it is fear. I think a lot of it is, the
it's the
abject
same fear
hate.
it's the same fear, Nick, that I think guides some of these Trump supporters to cling on to him because they think that somehow that, and the caller who preceded this conversation alluded to that. If you advance socially, if you become more acclimated to society, then somehow I'm losing my position. My manhood is threatened. My masculinity becomes suspect because you're growing in stature or presence or whatever. And that's just false.
Well, I'm going. My two NFL players. I'm going to bring them on, and we're going to talk about it. I pastor a church, and I know that in the church world, we are always in the presence of people who have issues with their own, and some of them don't have issues, but we may have issues with their sexuality, and especially if that sexuality is considered, quote, homosexual, and we live in a world where these individuals wrestle and struggle, and I'm tired of the fact that you can't talk about a reality that exists for so many people who make such great contributions to your church.
There you go. Well, I'm going to sit back and listen to the rest of this conversation, man. Great job.
All I'm saying, man, is that when you see me on the soup line for being fired from my church, throw something in my cup. That's all I ask for, love. Hey, I appreciate it, buddy, as always.
All right, sir.
You got it. Flood the Drummer, ladies and gentlemen, one of Philadelphia's finest. He's one of those gonzo reporters. He goes out and gets the story, jumps right in the story. Want to say hello to all of the folks who are taking the time to say hello to me. Kimberly Ferris. Hey, Kimberly, how you doing? Kimberly Ferris. I know that. Benita Francine, Lenora Alston, Kesahu Sarah, Charlene Murray. Charlene Murray said, God don't make mistakes. Love the sinner, hate the sin. Okay, let me ask you a question. Here's the question. Is being a homosexuality, does that make you a sinner? Or is it when you act upon it? I mean, that's one of the questions that people ask, Because the same thing could be said about a person who looks at another woman who's not his wife, but thinks, ooh, I'd like to have sex with that woman. That's sinful, is it? So, Joey Dixon, thank you so much for your comments on the Million Man March, and Nicole Streets, thank you for all that you do and all that you are. Okay, good people and bad people just as well. Well, we got a few more moments. I'm wondering if there's somebody else out there who might wish to chime in. I am not sure why people are so angry and so upset with individuals. When I grew up in the 60s, I remember in my first grade class, there was a young man who I went through school with him from first grade through 8th grade. And his name was Gregory. I won't say his last name. His name was Gregory. And this was at M. Hall Stanton School at 16th and Cumberland Street. And even though we didn't really have a psychological or philosophical construct, we knew he was different. Everybody knew he was different, and we had words that we would use to label that difference. And I realize now that all of those words were not cruel. I mean, were not kind, even though we did not mean them to be cruel. They just were words that were used, and I realize now that they were not kind words, even though we accepted the person. This individual went on, and when I was in my 30s, I ran into the same individual while driving along the street, and he knocked on my window, asked if I wanted a date, and when I looked up, I knew exactly who he was. I called his name and said, Gregory, and he looked at me, and he called my name, and I said, man, what are you doing out here? And he said, I'm just trying to make it, baby, and walked away. I haven't seen him since that time. Don't know what happened to him, but we came up together. Look, if you hurt him, you hurt me. He is a person that I knew and loved as a person. What he did with his genitalia did not stop me from loving him or caring about him or wanting the best for him. And I am wondering why that happens with some of my friends, especially my Christian friends, who are just rabidly rabidly and vitriolically after individuals who do not share their vision or their view or their version of what is considered to be a, quote, normal sexuality. We'll talk about this again. Trust me, this is not the last time you'll hear me lift my voice on it. I'll be coming back on it, but I think at this time we ought to take a pause and get ready to segue into the next conversation we're going to have, the Million Man March. Long live the spirit. Joey Dixon, you've got it right. Long live the spirit of the Million Man March. But what did it mean? What did it mean then historically to have all of those black men coming together in Washington, D.C., November the 16th, 1995? What did it mean then? What does it mean now to young men who were not of age to really participate in that event back then? And where do we have to go from here? We'll talk about that and more right here on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro on your favorite conversation station, 900 AM WURD, 96.1 FM. We'll be back after this.
Pico has many ways to help you lower your energy usage and save money at home. Here's one. If your heating and cooling system is more than 20 years old, it may be time for your contractor to replace it with a high-efficiency Energy Star certified model. You'll get a rebate from Pico and save on your monthly electric bill. You'll find a list of new heating and cooling system rebates at pico.com/rebates. Or you can call 1-888-5-PICO-SAVE for all the details. Plus, find instant discounts on smart thermostats and more at pico.com/marketplace. There's free shipping on orders over $49.
Just one more step. You got it.
You're doing great. This is the sound of a nationally ranked top rehabilitation hospital, home to the largest collection of robotics in the United States, where we continually exceed patient expectations. Because no injury is too severe or too minor for our care.
There you go.
This is the sound of success. Moss Rehab. Challenge accepted.
Listen to Laborers Live. We created the weekend. We created the 40-hour work week. We just want enough to feed our family, be able to send our children to college, and let our next generation do better than we did.
To people that might have forgot how important unionism is in a country like the United States. People now infringing on our 8-hour work day, trying to work people more than 8 hours without overtime, trying to work people without benefits. In the long run, everybody's getting a fat paycheck except the worker. So this is really a wake-up call for America.
The struggle is continuous. Tune in to Laborers Live every Friday from 4 to 5 p.m. Sponsored by LESIT, the Laborers Employers Cooperation Education Trust of the Laborers District Council of Philadelphia and vicinity.
Local 332, Sam Staten Jr. Business Manager. Local 57, Esteban Vera Business Manager. Local 135, Dan Woodall Jr. Business Manager. Local 413, James Harper Jr. Business Manager. The Laborers District Council, Ryan Boyer Business Manager, and Tony Staten, Executive Director of LESIT.
Everyone's journey to their vote is different, but they all share the same first step. If you want your voice to be heard on Election Day this November 3rd, you must be registered to vote. It's easy, and there are lots of ways to register. You can do it in person, online, or by mail, but you have to do it by October 19th. To learn more about how to register and to make a plan to vote, visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you sick of trying to cut and style your own hair and the rest of your family? Well, McLean's Unisex Salon in Mount Airy is open for business. We've been a neighborhood institution for more than 50 years, with styles for men, women, and kids. We have new partitions and social distancing measures to keep everyone safe while keeping the welcoming feel you've come to expect from your neighborhood shop. Visit us online at mcleansunisex.com or call now to make an appointment, 215-844-9826.
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey, how about that, everybody? Welcome back to you. 5 o'clock in the city of Philadelphia. Make that 2 minutes after the hour of 5 o'clock. And I'm Nick Taliaferro. This is Evening Words on WURD 96.1 FM and 900 AM. Glad that you can be a part of our program. My good friend, my brother from another mother from down under, Bill Lagoon from Australia, was asking, he said, when they came over to get married a few years back, they brought some gifts, and he said, where's the echidna, which is a sort of Australian hedgehog? But that's in my office, Bill. But I told him, I said, the boomerang that you brought is right here. I keep it nearby in case I need to throw something away that I want to come back to me. And here is that boomerang. Okay, folks, just thought I would share that. All right, we're going to get back to the conversation now. And I guess I play the part of the older brother here. But 25 years ago, the nation stood in rapt attention, not knowing what to expect or believe. After Minister Louis Farrakhan, and it began with him, made the call for 1 million men to come and atone in Washington, D.C. That was the purpose, to come and to atone. But then the mission of that gathering grew. It became larger. It was not only to atone, but it was also to pledge and to make vows to live differently. The idea was to bring 1 million black men to Washington, D.C. in a celebration together. All sorts of uproarious comments and prognostications were made as to what would happen if 1 million black men got together. October the 16th came, and I remember driving down with my good friend, Pastor William Hall, 2 ministers together, but I was working for the time at WHAT as a talk show host. We had done so much to get so many people to go down. And as we drove closer to Washington, D.C., the highways become blacker. I remember when we got to D.C., we parked our cars and we took the metro, the subways in Washington, D.C. to get downtown to where the gathering was going to be. Nobody knew how many people would show up. Nobody knew what the mood would be. But I remember it as we got on the subways that almost all of the cars were filled with black men. I remember looking at white people who were looking at us very carefully and bemusedly, not knowing what to think. And then I remembered walking through the pre-dawn darkness toward the staging area of the Million Man March, seeing hundreds upon hundreds and then thousands of black men, just like myself, walking toward that staging area. This is the thing that I remember most, and then I'll introduce my guest. What I remembered most was this. I felt something strange. I felt something different, and I didn't know what it was until the sun began to dawn, and then figuratively and metaphorically, it dawned on me what I was feeling. As men gathered by the tens of thousands and ultimately by the million, as we gathered together there on the mall in Washington, D.C., I realized that I was seeing black men all around me, and for the first time, I was surrounded by black men, and I did not feel fear. I grew up in a gang-infested neighborhood where when a lot of brothers were around, somebody was getting ready to get shot or getting ready to get stabbed, and when I saw a bunch of black men, if I didn't know who they were, I was afraid. But on that day, I lost that fear forever. I will never forget it. I claimed and owned my identity as a black man for the first time with an unmitigated pride that had no reservation. I remember the joy of that moment. And I will never forget the pride that I had of being a part of that gathering. Joining me on the line now is a gentleman that I've come to know. He's much younger than I am, but that's okay because I want that youth perspective. He is the founder of Rising Sons, an activist in the Philadelphia community. Please make welcome Alex P.A. Alex, how you doing, buddy? And welcome to you, man. Good to talk to you again.
Oh, my gosh, Nick, it is good to hear your voice. Welcome back. Welcome
man,
back.
Thank you, Alex.
We got so much to catch up on. I need a hug. I don't know if the Corona's stopping that right
Hey, man,
now,
I don't even care. When I see you, there's going to be some hugging done, man. I am grateful for you, my friend. First of all, how is your little girl? How's your little girl?
Little, she's 5 now, going on 54. She's she's the boss lady. She keeps me on point. And she's my fuse, that's my heartbeat. So yeah, she's doing good. She's 5.
Well, man, excellent. Look, trust me, it'll be in another 5 minutes. You're going to see a young boy coming to the house wanting to take your daughter out.
Don't, man, come on now. Let's not go there yet.
And for the first time in life, you will contemplate homicide. Trust me. Trust me.
Well, I'm contemplating on getting a license now. She's already 5. She's already talking. So that's old enough right now.
Oh man, oh, it's so beautiful, man. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Tell me, man. Now, as a young man, as a younger man, what were you doing on the day of the Million Man March?
Which are you talking about? The
original one, 1995.
Oh man, so my dad went. I actually was living in D.C. at the time, so my dad went to the march, and I mean, I didn't know. One thing about my family, much as I love them, they don't explain much to me. So I knew that there was a Million Man March. I did not understand the significance of it. All I know is my dad was hyped with his friends, and they went down there to go. But see, even stuff like that, like when you just explain the purpose of it, I feel like as a younger, first of all, I feel like my dad should have took me. But second of all, explaining the meaning behind it. I feel like I grew up when my parents was trying to shelter me so much of the reality about what was going on in our society. There was, they were preaching Martin Luther King's, love everyone. Everyone is the same and treat everyone the same, which is always the golden rules. But we also had to be reality that people don't love me too, And so I found about racism looking at the History Channel on Black History Month when I was 5, So that's one thing I really did wish I did was gain a better understanding of where he was going. And I honestly just have been there, just been in the space with all those black men and understanding why we're all getting together. I was very ignorant and naive to that because I didn't have parents who explained those things to me at that time.
Okay, now, and that's I was hoping that you weren't there, because what I really wanted to ask is that as a young man, and I'm inviting older men who were there now, I'm inviting you to call in and to reflect back on it, and younger men who weren't there to call in, and ladies who watched us planning this thing. And I remember hearing some very disturbing comments from people. Y'all know y'all not going, and all that kind of thing. But I want to get all of the retroactive comments. But as a young man, hearing about it and looking back on it, what part does the Million March play in your history?
Ooh,
if at all.
It doesn't, unfortunately.
Yeah,
it does. I mean, what I mean by that, my own history, I wasn't engaged in it. I didn't partake in it. I didn't participate in it. I wasn't taught or educated or anything around that. But it's like I feel like the history that it does play is me being a black man. This was our space of a mecca for a day, Yeah, and I think that's and honestly, I can stand and just say that everything that you just mentioned about the vibe, the energy, the space that it created. I think if anything, that was the most important part of that march. Was the first time that you can actually see black men coming together and going against the narrative and showing that we can come together and vibe and share these positive stories about each other, but also get to network and meet each other from around the country. I think that call was important. And I think that the fact that you can mobilize so many black men to be in one space at a given time, I mean, I think that's amazing. And I feel like that was a profound statement.
Hey, look, Alex, hold the line for me, because I want to make sure, if you can, because I don't want you to leave this discussion, but I want to bring on into the conversation two individuals that I know have some significant thoughts on it. One is one of the best investigative journalists and professors of journalism that this country has. This gentleman is, Pulitzer Prize. He's the man when it comes to journalism, and I admire him so much. Lynn Washington, we bring you on first. I want to throw something at you that was anecdotally stated about the Million Man March, and I know if anybody will know, you probably will. The word on the street is that on that day, no black person committed a murder in the United States of America. Have you heard that? And welcome to the show, Lynn.
Hi, Nick, and welcome back on the air.
Man, it's a pleasure.
Factually consistent with your question, I don't know that for sure. I just know that down there in Washington, D.C., there was such a vibe. It was almost like hey, brother, I'm sorry I stepped on your foot. And then
Yes.
the response was, I'm sorry my foot was under your foot.
Yes.
Yeah, it was such a rich and vibrant experience. And there were, almost 2 million people there, because at one point I walked from the Capitol steps, where the main podium and everything was,
right.
all the way back to beyond the Washington Monument. I didn't want to get into the little press area because it was actually a big press area, but because I wanted to really get out amongst the people. And there was plenty of black guys down there, plenty of black guys. And I want to address another issue. It's the Million Man March. And, there was some talk then, oh, you're excluding the women, so on and so forth. Here in Philadelphia, it was an effort where all were participating, and the sisters were out, supporting the brothers, and the brothers were there. They recognized that what part of what they were doing was representing and upholding black womenhood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
push people
that
out.
Was a large part of the
when
meeting.
The actual, and when the actual event went off, there were more women speaking from the stage than had spoken in the 1963 March for Jobs and Justice on Washington, where Dr. King gave that famous speech.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was a lot of myths that came up around it, but the surviving thing was that it was just such a moment of unity. And then, 20 years later, I'm taking my grandson to the 20 years.
And the years flew by so fast. Let me introduce another guest joining us who played a pivotal part in that as the leader of Mosque number 12, the Nation of Islam here in the city of Philadelphia. As we all stated earlier, Minister Louis Farrakhan was the driving force behind this, and his lieutenant in the city of Philadelphia is still with us, Minister Rodney Muhammad. And Minister Rodney Muhammad, you were right there on the front row as we were organizing and gathering. Give us your thoughts on what it took to build that great event and how you remember it looking back. And welcome to the show.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you. And it is good to hear your voice back on there. I'm honored to be on with Lynn Washington and others that, and Alex Pillay, I met him when I first became president of the NAA. Our first objective was to bring millennials in.
Yes.
And get them involved as for a transition of leadership. And so I'm very proud of him and what he does with his family, most of all. But that he seems to have the kind of family and woman that is willing to share him with the public for the kind of work that he's doing. So I see only greater things coming. For me, the Million Man March starts in 1989 when I was sitting with the minister and two other people, and he told his chief of protocol, "Sister, I want you to book me for every city in America." And we started a Stop the Killing tour. And the Stop the Killing tour took us all around America.
I remember that.
By April of 1990, he came to Philadelphia. We had about 12,000 people out. It was my first time ever coming to the city of Philadelphia. I flew in with him. But the Stop the Killing tour...
Was that at the Civic Center, Minister Muhammad?
Pardon me?
Was that at the Civic Center?
That was at the Civic Center.
I remember that. I was there at that tour. Yes, okay.
Yes, and then by 1994, I was appointed to minister, because 1 year after 1991, around August, I was appointed to this minister here. And, by 1994, we were at the Armory in Harlem, and he was just talking to a crowd. And we were still doing the Stop the Killing tour, and the words came out of his mouth to the men, "I want 1 million of you to meet me in Washington, D.C." And he said to himself, I don't know if I meant to say that. And as fast as he said it, he wanted to pull the words back because we were always taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, never speak ahead of your ability to do.
Right.
And he thought, he even shared publicly and privately, he thought maybe in a couple of years we could get it done. But once he had said it, we got into it. and we were like 6-7 months out from it, meeting it with pastors in Chicago, key pastors, and they wanted to do it. You could tell it was the right time because there was, even though there was some opposition, the apprehension and the doubt came through. People were trying to figure out, what's it about? What's it about? Are we going to demand of government? Are we going to demand of white America? Are we going to demand of somebody to do something? And the ministers said, no, we're going. And we went there and did that. We're going to cast ourselves really before the threshold of the Almighty as men and call on our God and present to our God our own failings as men to strengthen us to go back to our communities, to our women, to our homes and our communities, being reconciled with Him and His will. Because the key verse was not a Quranic verse, it was a biblical verse. If my people who are called by my name would just humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, forgive their sin, and heal the land. And that's what we wanted. And so that was the thing that resonated. But the minister kept saying, something's missing. We know we want the men to come together. We know we have important things to say to them. And then it was Reverend James Bevel, who had worked with Dr. King and Selma. He said, we need to atone. And that resonated through the minister. And he said, keep talking. And he said, we need to purify and work as black men. And it just, being a spiritually sensitive man, of course, the minister, that resonated with him. And God knows that's how we got into Anton. He was the one ruler over Egypt that called Egypt out of polytheism and back to the worship of one God.
Akhenaten. I remember that speech. Let me switch back over to Lynn Washington and take another journalistic view of it. Lynn, when this was first articulated and announced, people thought that of course, the minister, Louis Farrakhan, not only had he bitten off more than he could chew, but that he would never get the support of Christian ministers to join in it. But what was the thinking on the part of those of you who reported, of journalists? I mean, was there an immediate sense of, yes, this is doable and we ought to do it? Or was there a cynicism that said, oh, here we go again?
Well, there was a mixture, but there was a commitment to do all that was possible to make this happen. And I can't speak for other cities, but I know in Philadelphia there was a lot of organizing, a lot of meetings, a lot of initiative. And as it turned out, Philadelphia sent the largest contingent to that march. Right. And there was even a group of brothers who actually walked from Philly to there. And I was the editor of the Philadelphia New Observer at the time, and the publisher, Hugo Warren, was very much supportive of it, as well as other black media. So there was that inertia to make this thing happen. And once it started rolling, I don't think there was much thought that, well, this is not going to come off. We're going to be there and something's going to happen. And you're not in the, like we're going to light off and, riot or anything. But there was that commitment to make this happen and to show the doubters. And there was a lot of them, including in our community, that we can make this work and it can happen.
I've just been told that we've got to take a break in the studio, and when we come back, we'll continue in this dialogue. Minister Rodney Muhammad, who's serving as Chief Lieutenant to Minister Louis Farrakhan while we were organizing the Million Man March here in the city of Philadelphia, and Lynn Washington, award-winning journalist and professor of journalism, and also a lawyer. I mean, this man's a Renaissance man, and a regular contributor to Wake Up with WURD, joins us on the line as well. When we come back, we'll open up the phone lines and continue our conversation as we discuss the legacy of the Million Man March retrospectively and as we look forward. For the time being, though, it is now 21 minutes after the hour of 5. You're listening to Wake Up with WURD. You're listening to WURD, and this is Evening Word with Nick Taliaferro. We'll be right back to continue our conversation after these messages.
The pandemic is not only putting everyone's health at risk, it's also impacted our jobs and retirement security. And it's disproportionately affecting African Americans, especially those 50 plus. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. If you haven't voted yet, Now is the time to learn about your voting options and cast your ballot. We're working to make sure you can vote safely, whether you choose to vote from home or in person. And if you choose to vote by mail, make sure you return your ballot using both envelopes. Your ballot goes in the smaller envelope for secrecy, and that goes into the larger envelope for mailing. Also, don't forget to sign the voter declaration on the back. Your voice matters. Make sure it's heard. Go to aarp.org/PA-votes to learn about your voting options and how to vote safely this election. Visit aarp.org/PA-votes today. Paid for by AARP.
He's back.
This is Reverend Al Sharpton.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton.
In times like these, we have to stay connected.
At a brand new time, Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight.
I'm excited that Keeping It Real returns to WURD.
Keeping it real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. till midnight. This program is pre-recorded. No phone calls, please.
Keep it locked to WURD 96.1 FM, 900 AM, WURDradio.com.
Man, this coronavirus has us all moving differently.
No doubt. Like washing our hands more and social distancing with the crew. I'm always telling people to give me 6 feet. We're here, Grandma.
There's my babies. Good to see you got your mask on.
Wear mask. Stop the spread. For more information, visit www.pa.gov/COVID.
Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
What's up, Philly? It's Solomon Jones. The school year is underway, but never before has that experience come in so many shapes and sizes. Is the education of your child being left to a smattering of clumsy, in-person, and virtual instruction? The COVID-19 crisis has created a market for untested virtual teaching models lacking true credibility. Maybe it's time to reconsider and check out Commonwealth Charter Academy. Here are the benefits to your family. 1. An online education provided at no cost to you, complete with laptop, headset, and help with internet access. 2. Partnership with the market leader in cyber education with a nearly 20-year track record of world-class learning. 3. Delivery of a safe, reliable, and comfortable education experience over the internet directly to the confines of your living room. Visit ccaeducate.me today and discover the gold standard of cyber education. That's ccaeducate.me.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
Plenty of delays on Philadelphia roads. This report is sponsored by United Healthcare. Starting on the Schuylkill Expressway, westbound jam traffic from about University to 30th Street through the construction. Left lane is blocked. Eastbound Schuylkill, heavy volume from 476 to Gladwin. After that, you're looking pretty good. Vine Expressway westbound, that jams from Broad Street into the Schuylkill. 95 northbound, stop-and-go traffic from the Vine Expressway to Allegheny with a crash off on the shoulder. Jams again the Betsy Ross Bridge into Bridge Street. South on 95, that jams from Cottman into Bridge Street, opens up briefly, and then you're jammed again from Allegheny into Girard with a disabled vehicle in the right lane. Boulevard northbound, that stop and go from the Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Platte Bridge eastbound, a little heavy the midspan 26th Street. That's because of construction. The right lane is blocked. All the bridges over the Delaware River look good. In South Jersey, stop and go 295 northbound, Mount Royal into Mantua. That through construction, one lane is blocked. Southbound 295, no big delays. 42 southbound, that's heavy anywhere from the Walt Whitman Bridge into 295.
United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans come with a lot to take advantage of. Visit AdvantageWow.com to learn more. That's AdvantageWow.com to learn more about United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans.
For more traffic information, log on to SIGAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Here we go, ladies and gentlemen. I thought I found myself cast into outer darkness there for a moment, but we're back with you. Phone lines are open for you at 215-934-8065. We're going to get to the phone lines in just a moment. Let me reintroduce our guest. We'll call Alex back at a later time. We want to thank you for giving us the youth perspective on that. Alex P. of Rising Sons. On the line with us now is Minister Rodney Muhammad of Muhammad's Temple number 12, Chief Lieutenant to Minister Louis Farrakhan back when we were pulling together the Million Man March back in 1995, and Lynn Washington, of course, who is a contributor here at WURD, award-winning journalist and also professor of journalism here in the city of Philadelphia. I want to thank you two gentlemen for being with us. This is going to be a bunch of men talking about something that means a lot to all of us. We go to Arthur in Pennsauken, joining the conversation with our guest. Arthur, thank you for calling, and welcome to WURD.
Oh, thanks again, Nick, for having me on. Listen, when I think about the Million Man March, the one word that comes to mind is utopia. It was absolutely an incredible moment, a moment that was such a pinnacle in my life. It absolutely changed the trajectory of my thought patterns as to my responsibility to my community. And so when I took that vow of atonement, I had no idea that at that moment in time, that not only would I become a father and a husband, but also eventually a school teacher as well. So I think about that movement and that moment all the time, you know, as I stand before black and brown children to teach them the things that they need to know as far as their history and culture and what have you. So everybody that was responsible for, my sister attends a Union Temple with Reverend Willie Wilson down in D.C.
Oh, yeah,
they were
down in D.C.,
planning it as well. Yes. And so it was just stellar. It was a moment in my life that was just incredible that I hold in high esteem.
Hey, Arthur, thank you so much for sharing that moment with us. And when we go back, I remember that was the final thing that was done, Lynn and Minister Rodney Muhammad, the pledge that was taken. And the thing I remembered most about the pledge, I never will forget it, Minister Muhammad was saying, you know, when he laid out in the pledge, he says, "Ah," and then he said, "Say your name," and all of the brothers said, "Say your name." But ultimately, we all took the pledge. Let me ask the salient question now. I know that when we came back from that for a little while we were different.
Yes,
for a little while we were different. I mean, I guess all movements collapse after a while, but how long did the value of that meeting linger, and can we recapture it? Lynn, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Minister Rodney Muhammad.
The momentum that led up to the march dissipated afterwards. I mean, the minister went on a world tour. You know, folks were like, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Now, but then the spirit of that, I think your question was answered by the last caller, where he said that it had a profound effect on him, a life-changing effect. It motivated him to become a father and even to become a teacher. So there, you know, that kind of individual commitment that has sustained over decades was replicated by the hundreds of thousands from the people that are there. And just, you know, being there, that experience, that's indelible in the minds of everybody who was there. And I guess I should put this at the end, ... everybody who was there and who is still here today.
Yeah, good point on that one.
They're not there. Yeah.
We're getting close on 400 homicides in the city of Philadelphia, Minister Rodney Muhammad.
Yeah.
How do we revive that spirit so that we can dial back the rage and the violence?
I think you said it right, the pledge and what Lynn is saying. And one of the things about Philadelphia being one of the strongest organizations for the march when the minister traveled was that Joe Sertain, who was then city managing director for Ed Rendell, he went to the mayor. And so Ed Rendell went public supporting the idea and the principle of the Million Man March. And he allowed Joe to work. And so it was really Joe Sertain that was the captain of the ship, organized, brought union heads in and everything. I worked along with him. And, you know, the organization grew with Ken Tu and Bilal Qayyum were over mobilization. So there was a lot going on. Henry Nichols played a big role because you can't have a gathering that large in Washington, D.C. without adequate first aid stations or medical assistance, and he organized healthcare workers all over the country. It was Joe Certain that was responsible in D.C., you remember, for setting up the permits properly between local and federal properties in Washington, D.C., which you have a lot of combinations like that, and they can be as near to each other as across the street from each other. And so the permits have to read properly. Congressman Danny Davis helped, and just a lot of the logistics and legal things that we needed. So, you know, I'm thankful to so many people. But when we got back, Philadelphia was on fire.
It was.
And not only did we take a pledge, but the minister challenged every black man to go back and join a house of worship for their own moral and spiritual development. And he said, if that house of worship is not involved in liberation acts or acts for the liberation of your people, then also join organizations that you feel are fit for you to fight for the organization, for the liberation of our people. So things, I don't know the numbers for the Urban League and others, but the NAACP grew by 3,000 members. And so Jerry Monazar was very inspired after that, and he came to me and wanted to run for president of the NAACP, and we immediately got behind him in that effort. But to just go back to what you're saying, the murder rate, you have to remember, in the country, no one was talking about us killing each other very much outside of Minister Louis Farrakhan. In Philadelphia, it was Bilal Qayyum. Bilal Qayyum with the Father's Day Rally Committee, he kept talking about the murders. So this Million Man March, it really resonated here from a lot of earlier work, I believe, at the grassroots level that took place. And so the groundswell was just phenomenal. But it's always a challenge after you achieve a big monumental event to hold the organization together, because a lot of the reason it came together was to just make the event successful. But to go beyond that, if you had really set long-range goals, sometimes people are not sure, well, what do we do next now that we're all together? So a lot of organizations formed in that, but, to be honest, it wasn't until the year 2000, 5 years later, that we put out the national agenda, that we had something documented that we could begin to work from. But by then, the local organizer committees in most of the cities had sort of faded and dissipated. A lot of other new organizations sprung up.
Let's get another caller in on this. Lynn Washington and Minister Rodney Muhammad are joining us in a retrospective on the Million Man March, celebrating 25 years as of last week on the 16th. Hey, David Barnes, who was a big part of this. David, welcome to the program, man, and thanks for your call.
Thank you, Nick. First of all, I wanted to say welcome back to this frequency with your evening word. And I also want to say, when I was at the Million Man March, out of all the millions of brothers that was down there, I only saw two people from Philadelphia that I knew. One of you was you, Nick Kelly Farrell, and the other one was Cody Anderson. Out of all those millions of men, there was only two people that I ran into down there. But
I mean, really, man, I saw bunches of Philadelphia folk, man. But but that's a beautiful thing that as many Philadelphians as were down there, they got lost in the groundswell of people who became a part of that gathering.
But also,
what do you remember most, David? I mean, what did you take back from it?
Well, I would have to say would be remiss if I didn't mention Johnny Sample was instrumental in gathering a lot of brothers to go down there as well on the bus. And also, when the Minister Farrakhan said, go back to your communities and become a part of something, my place of worship was the radio station that we were at, WHAT. And I went to Cody. I said, Cody, there's got to be something more I can do, because I was doing photography professionally for a lot of years before that. And I said, well, Cody, there's got to be something more I can do besides photography to help lift our people up. He said, well, why don't you learn how to be an in-studio producer and board operator? And I did. And I became the board operator at WHAT, and I learned and I studied, and I sat in behind people like Minister Rodney Muhammad, Dr. Malifia Sante, and so many knowledgeable people that I couldn't help but learn something. So I learned how to do my own show. I started my own show, which is still going strong now after 18 years at WURD radio station. So that's what I get out of it, because I still have the spirit of the Million Man March.
Man, look, first of all, I did not know that story. Cody Anderson is one of the most empowering human beings on the face of the planet. That's how I got my start. And so, I mean, we raised his name. But David, hey, look, I'm glad that you got started that way, man. Thanks a lot for sharing that.
I'm glad, because I'm still one of the million.
Well said, sir.
Yes,
you know,
sir.
I mean, Lynn and Minister Rodney Muhammad, we're at a point now. We celebrated 20 years ago, a little while ago, and now we're talking about reviving the spirit of the Million Man March. There has to be something tangible that we can do, some real measurable next steps that we can take to revive that spirit and put it into a practice that will begin to change the way today's younger men are living. What thoughts do you have on this one, gentlemen?
Well, I always think, Nick, something the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, because it was really something that Elijah Muhammad said to Minister Farrakhan that started him on thinking of a march. But believe me, it was still a development. And in 1968, when Dr. King was assassinated, the minister said he cried. But because the Nation of Islam's method and Dr. King's methods were at variance, they both wanted the same thing, but they were at variance on the methods, as even Malcolm X had pointed out. The minister asked Elijah Muhammad, why did I cry when he died? And he told him things like the testator is still writing his story while he lives. It's only after he dies and the period is put on his life that the historians will gather up his deeds, and then they will find his place in history. But he said, one day I want 100,000 men, black men, to meet me in Washington, D.C. That was in 1968 when Elijah Muhammad said that to him. So he already took that idea. It was planted in his head like a seed, but by the time he said it, he said, 1 million of you beat me. And so I think that, beyond this, because many times you have to revisit words that many of our leaders and ancestors spoke, because in too many ways they have more value today to us than they did at the time our ancestors spoke those words. And
I want to get you to drill. I want both of you, gentlemen. I want you to opine on are there things we can do that are measurable, things that we can do that are practical?
That's what I was going to go to. I think and there are things. I think before, there are key steps that we have to make before. Some people say, well, we need economic development. Sure, we do. But even Elijah Muhammad said, and I think the wiser among our leadership always said, we need an awakening before we really enjoy group economic gain. And I understand that the children of Israel, I have to always go to the scripture, because reparations was never an idea that came from man. It came from God. God tells them in the 11th chapter of Exodus, you go tell the children of Israel that I said, require of the Egyptians their gold and silver. And so you know how the story goes. That they got the gold and silver. They left Egypt. They got in the wilderness. And in the absence of Moses, they fell into old ways and old mindsets. And so they said, let's take the gold and the silver, melt it down into a calf, and worship it.
I hear Lynn on the other end saying, the choir's getting ready to start singing.
Well, let me just finish this point. But see, when the children of Israel, when they left Moses and they left the mission that Moses had put upon them, the money becomes your master when it doesn't have something to do. So we can make all the money we want, but I guarantee you, in our mindset and our level and state of consciousness, as we've already proved, we're only going to use it to buttress the oppressor. And as Frantz Fanon always said, the greatest tool and weapon in the hands of any oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. I'll leave it there.
Okay, Lynn, how would you add to that?
Wow.
I mean, your Your ambient mind, I'm sure, is embracing a plethora of avenues.
Well, it's hard to expand on with the eloquence of the minister, and to raise names like Frantz Fanon and Malcolm and the others. Yeah. But one of the things I've noticed over the years is it's not that there's not effort on the part of the black community to address things. I think we, both within our community and the larger community, underestimate the enormity of the pushback that black people have had, that black people endure. One of the things that people in Philadelphia, from Bilal or Quayam, for example, going back 30 years or more with the Father's Day Rally Committee, is that people need jobs. We need economic change. And there's that promise that's dangled out there, but it's never fulfilled. Yes, there's a need for spiritual enlightenment. Yes, there's a need for empowerment in terms of politics and making sure that those who we put in are accountable to us versus their own pocketbook and self-interest. Do we need education? So we need a lot of things across the board. I see a unique period that we're in now because it seems to be cyclical in terms of vitality and energy. The civil rights movement went from 56 to 71, 72. That moment in October of 1995. Today, Black Lives Matter. 1920s and 19-teens, the Marcus Garvey's UNIA. So that energy is there. You just need that spark, and once that spark is lit, which it is now with this Black Lives Matter, because now we have even the young that have pretty much been alienated. They're involved in terms of pushing for social justice, and I think we need to be really serious, and if it means some sacrifices, yeah. For example, if it means not shopping at a big box store, then don't be standing out there on the night before Black Friday so you could run in and fight over a TV set. Stay at home. If it means don't get yourself a chicken sandwich someplace, don't get the chicken sandwich. But, we have to be serious. It has to be long-term. And we have to realize that when we talk about unity, we're never going to get everybody on point.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just the ones that we can. And I remember when we were doing things at the Daily News, trying to effectuate some change there. The point was made to some of the employees of color, you don't have to believe in what we're doing. You don't have to be engaged. We'll still fight for you. Just don't get in the way. Because if you do, you're going to get crushed. And, I think if we have those kind of attitudes and recognize that we, have to move on different fronts all the time, even if it means us, turning our computers on at night and make sure the computers are working for us while we're sleeping, because that's what the other side does. I think we can accomplish some change given the very peculiar and particular and important moment we're in right now.
I want to take a moment to thank both of you gentlemen for giving us the rich and viable living history that you share with us. Lynn Washington, award-winning journalist, professor of journalism at Temple University. Minister Rodney Muhammad, who served as the right hand to Minister Louis Farrakhan during the time that we were formulating and constructing the Million Man March, and who still serves as the leader of Mosque number 12 here in the city. Thanks to you both, and thanks for all that you do.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Real privilege. We're going to take a quick break. We're behind the time, and when we'll come back, we'll continue this conversation with you here on WURD AM 996.1. This is Evening Word with Nick Taliaferro, and we'll have some more words after this.
The time is now to put an end to the chronic incompetence of Donald Trump and his League of Liars. Donald Trump makes a mockery of the institution of the presidency. He's polarized our country, and his dangerous policies must not continue. Joe Biden has the character, empathy, and experience to lead us through these challenging times. He helped lead the nation out of the 2008 financial crisis into the longest period of economic growth in our history, and he can do it again. As president, he will heal divisions and unite us around the shared values of justice. He'll create opportunities for quality education and good-paying jobs, and he'll build on the Affordable Care Act, not tear it down. While Donald Trump thinks coronavirus and climate change are a hoax, Joe Biden already has a coronavirus recovery plan and a strategy to create more jobs while also tackling the climate crisis. Vote for a president who will stand on the right side of history. Vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Paid for by Black PAC and Priorities USA Action, blackpac.com and prioritiesusaAction.org, which are responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
This is not a fad for us.
We will not resume our regular programming when things die down. We're not black to help our bottom line or because it's politically correct. We're not joining a fight. This has been our fight, our message, our people. Black lives have always mattered here. We are
undeniably,
indefatigably, unapologetically, permanently Black Talk Media.
WURD.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear. This election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We'll protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body. Root out systemic racism in our justice system. And pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Everyone's journey to their vote is different, but they all share the same first step. If you want your voice to be heard on Election Day this November 3rd, you must be registered to vote. It's easy, and there are lots of ways to register. You can do it in person, online, or by mail, but you have to do it by October 19th. To learn more about how to register and to make a plan to vote, visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way.
Now, a traffic update on WURD Radio.
It remains a pretty busy afternoon on the Philly roads. This report is sponsored by United Healthcare. Traveling along 95 southbound, bumper-to-bumper traffic, the Betsy Ross Bridge to Allegheny Avenue. 2 disabled vehicles now cleared. All lanes are open there once again. Further south on 95, no big delays. Northbound 95, some heavy volume from about the Vine Expressway to Allegheny. Then you're jammed as you go from the Betsy Ross Bridge to Bridge Street. On the Vine Expressway westbound, jam traffic, the Ben Franklin Parkway to the Schuylkill Expressway. Schuylkill eastbound, it's heavy, 476 into Gladwin. Westbound on 76, that jams University to 30th through the construction. One lane is blocked. Then you're sluggish City Avenue out to Belmont. Heavy on the Boulevard northbound, Schuylkill Expressway into Broad Street. Platte Bridge eastbound, that slows as well from the midspan to 26th Street with construction in the right lane. No big problems on the bridges over the Delaware River. In South Jersey, not too bad. Some stop-and-go traffic, 295 northbound, Mount Royal up to Mantua through construction. One lane is blocked. And in Cherry Hill, 70 eastbound, it's heavy as you go from the Kings Highway to Westgate Drive.
United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans come with a lot to take advantage of. Visit AdvantageWOW.com to learn more. That's AdvantageWOW.com to learn more about United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans.
For more traffic information, log on to SigAlert.com. I'm Brendan Joseph with your Philadelphia area traffic.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Exclusively, it says, ladies and gentlemen, I'm nowhere else but right here, and that's where I'm going to stay. It is now 9 minutes away from the hour of 6 o'clock. We got time for a couple of more calls. In the 6 o'clock hour, we are going to jump across the stream a little bit and talk about capital punishment. Of course, if you still want to talk about this, we'll allow that to happen. Let's go to Ali. Ali, thank you for calling, and welcome to our conversation retrospectively about the Million Man March.
Thank you, Nick, and welcome back, Nick. It's good to hear you back on the air, man. Very good to hear you back.
Man, it is a real privilege, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Nick, what I, recall from the Million Man March, I'm 74 years old now. I remember leading up to the Million Man March, let's say maybe a month or maybe 3 or 4 weeks up to the Million Man March. I remember just the feel of everybody getting ready for the Million Man March. And the other thing that I remember very well is we went up on buses. We had like 3 buses leaving from my area. I was a bus captain for some of the buses.
Here in Philadelphia?
Yes, sir. Southwest Philly.
Okay.
And I remember most of the people who were ready to go to the Million Man March, we got ready to around 3 o'clock in the morning. We were supposed to meet at the location where the buses were supposed to leave from. There was a delay in the buses, but I remember the mood of the people. There was no anger. People was, very calm about it.
Yeah.
And the other thing that really struck me, Nick, was this. When we got into Washington, pulling up to, I think it was RFK Stadium,
right,
where all the buses from
where
all
the staging
over.
was, yes.
What a sight that was, Nick, to see how many people from all over, brothers from all over, gathered there, and then marching up to the Capitol. I remember we walked up to the mall.
Right.
And the feeling that I had, Nick, was this, all I could see was a sea of black men. Just
I remember that very same feeling.
And the thing that really got it was the peacefulness. There was no, brothers, I seen brothers from the Crips and the Blood was there, embracing each other. So these are some of the things that I remember that really touched my heart in the Million Man March, Nick.
Man, you almost brought tears to my eyes. If I were prettier, I'd go ahead and shed a few tears. But I have to hold it back. Just remembering the warmth of that day, and I remember realizing that the stuff that many of us were experiencing on that day was stuff that other people were taking for granted all of their lives.
Absolutely, Nick. I agree.
But man, look, you put the capstone on this conversation for us. It was the peace, the tranquility, the harmony, and not a peace that comes when nothing is happening. Normally people think of peace when there's nothing, like a graveyard. This was peace with 1 million black men who had been considered the ongoing and constant problem of America. All in one place, all together, didn't know each other, but there was a sense of peace that radiated from the gathering.
Absolutely, Dick. And the other thing was, when we left the Million Man March, when you think about the multitude of people and the stuff that was there, when they left Washington, D.C., the mall area was spick and span. There was no trash left.
That's true.
So that was another thing that was really moving. And thank you very much, Nick, for
listening. Hey, man, look, the privilege is mine. Thank you, my friend. I really appreciate it. Why did I bring this up? Is it simply to remember something that happened 25 years ago? It was a quarter of a century ago that we came together. I remember it like it was yesterday. Driving down I-95, watching, when we drove down, Bill Hall and I were riding together, and we were saying, I wonder how many people will show up. I wonder if we'll get, thousands, hopefully we'll get thousands. And we knew that there was a good spirit being raised, but we didn't know what was going to happen. But as we got closer and closer, the crowds got larger and larger until there were rivers of black men coursing toward the staging area where this event would take place. And when we got there and we realized the triumph that was ours in being able to bring this together, but more importantly, the great sense of peace and harmony that was there. As Lynn Washington said earlier, if you stepped on somebody's foot, there was an immediate sense of, man, did I offend you? And the person would say, man, look, I am sorry that my foot was under yours to offend you. I remember a young boy, I'll never forget this moment, a child got separated from his father in a crowd like that, then you'd imagine it. But a child was separated from his father, and the child began to cry. And strong black hands raised that child in the air and began to yell out, there's a child who's separated from his father. And his father had somehow or another gotten taken far away across from the crowd. And we realized that the father was over there and the child was over here. And the men in the crowd began to pass this young child over the heads of this sea of black maleness, hand by hand, person by person, until that boy was reunited with his father. That was the metaphorical moment that identified that march for me. The healing of relationships, which is why we were there, to atone for the failure of what had been out. It didn't matter how we got to where we got. We owned the fact as black men that we had failed to be all that we could be. And we made a pledge to change that. And many people, many people took that pledge seriously. Like Arthur said when he came back and he decided, I'm going to be a teacher. Like I did when I said, I will never let go of the demands of what my ministry is. It was an extraordinary event. Now, the reason why I bring it to you today is this. If we could do it then, we can do it now. I am so heartbroken and so tired of when I hear another shooting or another murder that I don't even have to look at them. They don't even show you who did the shooting or who did the dying. But as black men, we know who it is. But if we did it then, we can do it now. Anecdotally, the word has gone forth that on October the 16th, 1995, there was not a black man in America who took the life of another person. We're going to check it out. I've been checking for years. I can't get anything definitive, but that is the anecdotal evidence. Now, the thing about it is, even if it is not completely true, it's true enough where it is not easily challenged. All we know is that on that day, there was a peace and a tranquility in the African-American community where men dwelled that was unequaled at any given point in the history of this nation. And if we can do it then, we can do it now. It's 1 minute away from the hour of 6 o'clock in America's favorite city. You're listening strong to WURD, AM 96.1 and 900, FM 96.1 and AM 900. We'll be right back to continue our dialogue with you right here. Stay with us.
Have you heard about Penny? They make it easier than ever to get health coverage.
What if I'm self-employed?
Penny gets you covered.
Unemployed?
Penny gets you covered.
What about my family?
Penny gets them covered too.
But will this fit into my budget?
Penny can connect you to financial help to lower the cost.
Really? Where do I go?
Easy. Just go to PENNIE.com or call 1-844-844-8040.
2020 is the year of voter options. We have many different ways to exercise one of the most important activities in our lifetime. Some of us might be voting by mail, but the rest of us can still vote safely while masked up and social distancing in person at your local polling locations. If you're in Philadelphia, learn more about where your polling location might be at either votespa.com or philadelphiavotes.com. For more information on how to vote in Pennsylvania, visit states.aarp.org/Pennsylvania. Vote early.
Hey, WURD family. Our friends at Amoroso's Baking Company are hiring right now. Amoroso's has been baking the delicious bread in our community for over 100 years, and they want you to join their team today. The old and the young love Amoroso's, and they are hiring right now. Check it out. They offer fair pay and provide health, dental, and prescription plans after 90 days employment. Call 856-754-0355 or visit amorososbaking.com for details.
WURD Radio presents the following information to help you navigate the upcoming election.
This is Charles Ellison, host of Reality Check on WURD. Are you a Philly area voter who received your mail-in ballot but suddenly decided you want to vote in person? If you return your complete ballot to the county election office by October 27th, you may not vote in person on Election Day. However, if you don't return your complete mail-in ballot to your county before October 27th, you can go to a polling place, surrender your unvoted ballot and voter's declaration envelope, sign a statement, and vote on the machines. Keep following us at onWURD on Twitter, facebook.com/4word, and #word on politics for constant updates on election 2020. And remember, vote early.
Stay informed and vote. For more from Charles Ellison, tune in Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. or visit wordradio.com.
There's a pressing need to strengthen pathways to better jobs in communities of color. That's why Bank of America is investing $1 billion to advance racial equality and economic opportunity.
I'm Jim Dever, Greater Philadelphia Market President for Bank of America. We've partnered with Coded by Kids to connect people to new skills and employment opportunities. It's just one way we're taking action in Greater Philadelphia right now.
Bank of America N.A., member FDIC, equal credit opportunity lender.
Lifting every voice till earth and heaven ring. This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Black Talk Media. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at ForWord. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey folks, Nick Taliaferro here with you on Evening Word, final hour of our program. But I don't care how full you get, make sure you save space, because Sincerely Sarita comes your way at 7 o'clock here on WURD 96.1, 900 AM. Keep your dial locked where you have it for the best and continuous, informative, uplifting, and inspiring conversation, just the way you like it, served over easy here on WURD. All right, folks, final hour of our program. It's all fair game. Everything I've talked about is fair game. And so earlier on, we were talking about why people are so angry with individuals who may not be gender conforming. And by gender conforming, in other words, if this woman does not act the way you think women should act when it comes to her sexuality, or if this man doesn't act the way men should act the way you think he should when it comes to his sexuality, why do we get so angry at them? That's the part I don't get. Why do we get so angry? The phone lines are open for that. We'll continue in that conversation if you'd like. And then we had a retrospective on the Million Man March. I want to thank Alex P.A., Lynn Washington, Minister Rodney Muhammad for being a part of our conversation, and all of those of you who called in. The Million Man March 25 years ago was a day when over 1 million black men. Now, let me tell you why I say over. The National Park Service, which measures these kind of things, they take a snapshot, and using certain metrics, they decide how many people per square feet inhabit, and blah, blah, blah. And they use that metric to decide how many people are gathered in a space. And they looked, and initially they said, 400,000. Then they said, 600,000. And then after some revising and reconsideration, they said 800,000. Now, let me tell you why I know it was more than 1 million. What that did not allow for was the fact that the crowd during the Million Man March was constantly refreshing itself. People came early in the morning and they left in the middle of the day. Some people came mid-morning and left mid-afternoon. Some people came at noon and left later on in the evening. But the crowd kept refreshing itself. So the people that you saw in a photograph at noon may not be the same people that you saw at 10 a.m. And the people you saw at 10 a.m. were certainly not the same people that you saw at 4 p.m. So we know that we had well over 1 million people. It was an extraordinary event. But the reason I bring it up is because anecdotally on that day, it is reported that there were no black homicides around the country. If we can do it then, we can do it now. The things that led to that day and that resulted from that day and that happened on that day are not alien. They're not off in some galaxy far away. We can bring them back right now. Tomorrow I'm going to have with us a gentleman from California who is a part of a peace movement and anti-violence movement. His name is Devon Bogan, and we'll be talking about ways to create peace. Remember, here on evening word, the expression senseless violence will not exist as an explanation for what we're seeing on the street. We're going to make sense of violence. We're going to understand why it happens, and then we're going to become accountable for bringing solutions and remedies and cures to stop it from happening. And Devon will be our guest tomorrow to talk more about that, along with a bunch of other good folks. So keep your dial set where you got it, and make sure you don't miss me tomorrow. It's going to be a great, great show. 215-634-8065 is the number. 215-634-8065 is the number. Let me add another topic for your consideration in our final hour of the program. All right, I share with you this story. Lisa Montgomery, back in the year 2004, went to the home of Bonnie Stinnett, presumably and ostensibly to buy a puppy. Miss Stinnett was a breeder of a certain type of puppy and allowed Miss Montgomery to come in to consider the sale and the purchase of the puppy. Upon arriving at the home, Lisa Montgomery began to strangle Miss Bonnie Stinnett in her home. Bonnie Stinnett was at the time over 8 months pregnant. Lisa Montgomery strangled her to the point of unconsciousness and then grabbed a steak knife and applied that knife to the pregnant belly of Miss Stinnett. This is December 2004. Upon using the knife to cut open, and I'm sorry if this is crude, but I want you to get the story for what it is. Upon applying that knife to cut open the pregnant belly of Bonnie Stinnett, Lisa Montgomery inadvertently shook her out of her unconsciousness. At that time, Bonnie Stinnett, who was pregnant and who had been unconscious, awakened when she was cut and began in a fight for her life. It is unfortunate that that fight ended with her losing her life. Lisa Montgomery, in December of 2004, killed, murdered Bonnie Stinnett, and then, using that knife, removed the baby from the womb of Bonnie Stinnett and took the baby home with her, telling people that it was her baby that she had just given birth to. That story unraveled rather quickly, and Lisa Montgomery was arrested, taken to jail, tried for murder, convicted, and given the death sentence. It has now come to us that Lisa Montgomery will be the first woman to be executed by the United States. This is a federal case now, for some reason, I'm not sure why. That she will be the first person executed by lethal injection in 57 years. The question I want to ask you is that justice for you? First of all, do you feel that women should be executed for whatever the crime might be? Some of you are going to call in and say, well, this is an age of equal rights, and if women can have, they can get paid the same as men, and if women can blah, blah, blah as men, and so forth and so on, then they ought to be able to receive the same kind of penalty. Do you really think that way? I want you to know that the downfall of a culture, the demise of a culture, can always be earmarked by the incarceration and the criminalizing of its women. When you see a culture having an uptick in women being sent to jail and criminalized, you can know for sure that that culture is on its way downward. In that vein, do you feel that it is justice, meaningful justice, to execute this now 52-year-old woman, Lisa Montgomery? Now, it is also to be understood that Miss Montgomery has mental issues. Well, duh. Anybody who goes to a house of a pregnant woman, knocks her out, and then takes the fetus out of her womb with a knife, and then says the fetus the baby is her own and tries to pass it off, you got to pretty much think that they're crazy anyway. And I use the word crazy in quotations, but you get my drift. Well, it has been noted that she has, Lisa Montgomery, now 52, that she has some mental issues. She's not, she's not, well, put it like this, like a poorly prepared mummy, she's not wrapped too tight. I hope that that did not offend anybody. So do you think that executing a woman who clearly has some mental issues, is that justice to you? I want to ask the next question. Do you think that executing anybody is the best form of justice? My brother and I argue about this all the time. I tell him that that capital punishment, the executing of a person for a crime, is known to not be a deterrent against crimes like that which led to the person being punished. It's known. Capital punishment does not decrease criminality, particularly when it comes to murder. We know that for a fact. Back in the 1920s when you had, and I want you to remember now, before we talked about capital punishment as a racist tool, capital punishment was being deployed with great regularity on white men and some white women. Bonnie and Clyde, all of the gangsters of the 20s and the 30s. These were all white men and some white women. All. And now they were executing people, putting them in the electric chair like it was an electric couch. But it did not stop the crime and it did not stop the murder. The one thing we know is that harsh punishment does not end the behavior that leads to wanting to punish people harshly. So the question that I ask is this: how many of you, all things being equal, consider capital punishment to be a useful tool in criminal justice? If you believe it is, I want you to tell me why. Let me give you the number again, 215-634-8065. That's first. First is, do you believe that the execution of a woman is acceptable in our culture? Two, the question that I want to ask is, do you believe that capital punishment is ever a useful tool? I'll stay with those questions for the time. I'll give you the number again, 215-634-8065. But we want to get back to the phone lines now and pick up a voice that I haven't heard in a while. Sharky Stevenson from South Philadelphia, the man on four corners. Welcome to the show, Sharky. Thanks for your call.
Listen, say your name.
I never will forget that, man. We're standing there. He said, say your name. Say your name.
Yeah, Nick, I'll be honest with you, I haven't listened into the station for quite some time, and I was riding along, and I was looking for something else on the radio and heard your wonderful voice. I said, I got to call in. And I thank God for all I heard about the Million Man March. I'm going to get out the way because you just posed something that the Million Man March was developed to deny capital punishment. That was one of the things we were looking for, to annihilate, was the use of capital punishment, and especially because we came together to annihilate the use of killing one another. So I thank God for all that came on today, and like you said, from the great state of South Philadelphia, Gamble and myself, all we raised up here as kids, and I had the biggest clothing company in town because I served everybody from Cheltenham to the Navy Yard, from river to river, because I knocked on your door and brought it directly to you, like Amazon.
Hey, brother, let me tell you, and you're still sharp. So I mean, Let me ask you, but as a minister, let me ask you a question as a minister, and that is, the Bible speaks of the fact that certain people could be put to death for certain reasons. Mm-hmm. Do you perceive that using the death penalty as punishment, because it's in the Bible, do you think that it is a healthy thing to continue to do?
Well, one thing I've learned since I've been involved with my life, I was 10 years into my life of the biblical way of approaching things when Million Man March came about. But also, I had the double homicides in my own family.
Wow.
And in 98, I mean, that's how I wound up being with you working in the mayor's office of community service, because I had two brothers. The first murder of the year of January the 1st, 1998 was Gary Bedell. That's my brother. And then 60 days later, my other brother, Charles Bucky Bedell, was shot and killed. And these guys were not involved in any of the street activities themselves. There was a turn in how the community was. You were talking about we're talking about the new observers. I mean, I did program after program with ways to help deter violence all across the city and anywhere else. But the reason why I'm telling you all that, I never forget walking through the halls, and I seen my mother going to the bathroom, and I see the mother of the young man that was accused of being a part of killing my brothers. And and at that particular time, I remembered one thing. I said, man, my mother didn't raise her sons to be killed, and that lady didn't raise her son to be charged with it. So I walked and I prayed with those two mothers. And then my good friend that grew up with me and went to school with me, Elmer Smith, Elmer did a story on me, The Last Man Standing. And in that, he said, well, how did you deter yourself from not getting revenge? Shark, you know the street, you know both sides of the street. I said I had to lose my mind in the mind of God. He quoted that. And so, and when you lose your mind in the mind of God, we're not talking about religion. We're talking about Christians, Muslims, Jews. You know, we're talking about the Creator Himself. And so, so the reality of what you teach talking today. Let me say, myself.
Real quick.
I don't see the capital punishment deterring anybody from going forward. My key word in life is PEACE, peace. I see peace being the thing that preempts violence. I see violence, you have to wait till it happen and then you solve it. But peace will preempt it, because you and I can be in an argument, but if one of us get peaceful, we can cut the violence back.
Well said, my friend. Well said.
I mean, the reality of it is we must work to bring about the peace. What it's going to do, capital punishment.
Gotcha.
The jail cells and all those things, Nick, will go to par. But, Nick, I want to leave you with one thing. You asked a question.
Real quick.
Can we do it again? Well, thank God. Here's what happened. The economical situation is fine. And now, Nick, you showed up at Solomon. And Solomon, they say, well, what you need? You say, I got a job, I got money. And you say, what you need, Solomon? Give me wisdom. If wisdom and knowledge get together, we can do a lot.
Well said, my friend. Sharky, it's good talking to you, man. And thank you for taking the time to say hello again. And I look forward to catching up with you soon. Hey, you know, and Sharky just mentioned a name that when he mentioned it, it made me just pause. Elmer Smith, I mean, one of the finest columnists the Daily News ever produced. Names were mentioned a few moments ago that reminded us of people that we had lost. And I hail these names, Elmer Smith, Brother Ken Tu, and some of the other names. I'm grateful that we had names that were mentioned that are still with us. Bilal Qayyum, Joe Certain is still with us. You know, I'm still with us. And if you're hearing me, then you're still with us too. All right, folks. I really want to know. I mean, one of the things that you'll find is that even though Black people are labeled as liberal because typically they vote Democratic, that many of us have a very conservative ideology and philosophy of life. Most Black people that I know believe in the death penalty, that they still think that it ought to be used, especially if it has something to do with somebody in their family that got hurt. We're talking now about 52-year-old Lisa Montgomery on death row, about to become the first woman executed in 57 years by the government. Do you think the death penalty is a useful tool of justice in America today. We'll take the pause and we'll come back and continue to talk about it. It's 21 minutes after the hour of 6, final hour of Evening Word with Nick Taliaferro. And after this, we'll return.
Hi, I'm Dr. Heidi Seropoulos. If you're on Medicare, you should know that many Independence Blue Cross Medicare Advantage plans have a $0 copay for primary care physician visits and telemedicine medical doctor visits. All our plans have $0 in-network COVID-19 testing and treatment and the largest network of doctors and hospitals in our area.
Call 833-848-0762 today. TTY-TDD 711. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Or visit us online at ibxmedicare.com/doctors. Independence Blue Cross offers Medicare Advantage plans with a Medicare contract. Enrollment in Independence Medicare Advantage plans depends upon contract renewal. Independence Blue Cross offers products through its subsidiaries Independence Hospital Indemnity Plan, Keystone Health Plan East, and QCC Insurance Company, independent licensees of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association.
Joe likes to say that character is on the ballot, and it's true. But let's be clear, this election is about building this country back better. And that's exactly what Joe and I will do. Bring back critical supply chains so the future is made in America. Build on the Affordable Care Act. And finally, offer caregivers the dignity, the respect, and the pay they deserve. We'll protect a woman's right to make her own decisions about her own body. Root out systemic racism in our justice system. And pass a new Voting Rights Act that will ensure every voice is heard and every voice is counted. We have a chance to choose a better future for our country.
I'm Joe Biden, candidate for president, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Biden for president.
Hi, my name is Dr. Blake. If you're out there with residual baby fat and you want that waistline back, Smart Lipo Laser is for you at Blake GI Med Spa Services. It is affordable, minimally invasive, minimum discomfort, minimum downtime, and no loose skin. You will see results in 24 hours. Give us a call at Blake GI Med Spa Services today, 215-849-4902.
Everyone's journey to their vote is different, but they all share the same first step. If you want your voice to be heard on Election Day this November 3rd, you must be registered to vote. It's easy, and there are lots of ways to register. You can do it in person, online, or by mail, but you have to do it by October 19th. To learn more about how to register and to make a plan to vote, visit PhiladelphiaVotes.com. However you want to vote, we'll help you find the way.
WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Back with you, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you for joining us. Final few moments of Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro coming along at 7 o'clock. Save a little space, save space for Sincerely Sarita. Always an extra helping for you to chase the night away with some extra goodies toward the ending of your day. Right, the phone line's open at 215-634-8065. There's been a magnitude 7.5 earthquake that struck the North Pacific Ocean on this day, and it has triggered a tsunami warning along the Alaskan Peninsula coast. We hope that everybody will be safe on that area. We remind everybody that this is the last day to register to vote. We hope that you will be able to exercise your franchise. I do believe that there's still an opportunity for you to take care of business online, and please, if you need to do it, because we need all hands on deck when it comes to voting this time around. We want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to offer their opinion when it comes to voting. I correct myself, folks. I had made mention of the fact that This would be the first federal inmate to be executed, female inmate to be executed in 57 years. That is 67 years. I correct myself. It was 67 years. And this is the case, of course, of Lisa Montgomery, who is considered to be mentally ill, who had suffered childhood abuse. And sometime back in 2004, she went to the house of Bonnie Stennett, who was pregnant, ostensibly to buy a puppy, strangled Bonnie Stennett, and then murdered her using a kitchen knife to remove Bonnie Stennett's fetus from her body, taking the baby home as her own. It was a horrible crime, a horrible crime. And now she, having been convicted of murder, she was sentenced to capital death. And she is supposedly going to the death chambers where she will be killed with a lethal injection. They've switched now. Used to be 3 substances that they put in your body. One would slow down your respiratory rate. One would slow down your breathing and knock you unconscious. And the other one would slow down your life and kill you. But now they are down to 1 chemical, they say. The question we're asking you is, do you believe that the death penalty is a useful tool of justice? Now, I know you've got an opinion about it, because I know you said it before. And I'd like to find out what that opinion is. Do you think it is a useful tool of justice? To all of our friends who are out there who watched the football game yesterday and watched our Eagles lose to the Ravens, I want you to know it was a moral victory. They don't count those, but it was one. The guys played like they might be willing to play some football for the second half of the season. So we'll see how they do this coming Thursday when they played the New York football Giants. Let's get back to the phone lines, 215-634-8065. Tyrone in North Philadelphia, thank you for your patience and welcome to the program.
Well, Nick, anytime
Yes,
I'm
sir.
listening, I'm learning. So I'm not being patient. I'm being studious. How are you tonight, brother?
I'm good, my friend. How are you feeling today, man?
Hey, man, everything's everything. Look, I did all day Saturday from one part of the city to the other, reminding everyone that today was the last day to register to vote. I put an emphasis on 18 years old. And again, we did it again today, one part of the city to the other, just trying to get 18-year-olds to register. And our message was, Nick, that we want them to get in this process right away, because one of the first things in being a part of this political process and participating is registering and in voting. So if you can do that, then you can start building on using the power of the political apparatus. And that was our message to these young folks. And I'm just thanking God that we were able to do it. Today, as we was riding, Jackie McDowell and myself, we got 10 folks. So, I mean, 10.
Well, that's excellent, man.
It's a blessing, because we're riding and folks stopping the cars. Can I register? And we were able to do it. So I just wanted to share that, Nick, because it's so very important. But, Nick, I wanted to, if it's okay, if I could just back up and go to talking about the Million Man March very quickly, because I know you have a question, but if I could just speak on that, because...
Take the next couple of minutes, Tyrone, and opine on that.
Okay. Well, one of the things that I'm so glad that Brother Rodney Muhammad mentioned was Cantu. Brother Cantu, if I believe, in Philadelphia, it was 30-plus buses that I believe he was able to organize. It might have been more, but I think it was 30-plus.
Yeah.
And
I think Philadelphia took something like 80 buses down for that day.
Cantu, just Cantu. I'm not talking about all the other churches and all the other.
Oh, yeah. Look,
I'm
I
just
get
talking
you.
from Progress Plaza, and just tell you how good God is. You know, we were just talking about Reverend Sullivan celebrating his birthday on this past Friday. And again, our station, or where we left for the Million Man March, was at Sullivan Plaza. And then to bring it in full swing, well, before I do the full swing, Nick also want to speak on
well, I mean,
20th and 25th.
Well, let's stay on the one thing. I don't want to dilute the main point that you're making, because you were saying something about Ken2 and the buses, and what point was that you were making there?
Well, again, I'm speaking on the 20th anniversary, you know, Justice or Else, because that was also a, you know, wonderful experience of, you know, black men and women coming together and just celebrating who we are. But
I got to tell you, I appreciate your bringing up Ken2 and his effort, you know, and at Progress Plaza. I had forgotten how many buses that you know, everyone remembers, of course, that Johnny Sample and the Johnny Sample sports team did so many. Troy Wilmore was during that time, he was really a part of all that was going on there. But Ken2 did it well, and there were people from all over the city. You know, Tyrone, I want to thank you for reminding us of the sacrifice and the energy and the commitment that made all of that possible, man. I deeply appreciate that, and we want to try to see if we can get back and get a couple more people to talk about criminal justice. And I'm surprised that people have nothing to say about capital punishment. It is amazing to me. I'm surprised that so few of you had so little to say about Coming Out Day, National Coming Out Day, where people declare themselves for who they perceive themselves to be. I'm really shocked by that. I wonder, is it because we have gotten to a point in life where we think that there is no honest dialogue anymore? Or is it that we have gotten to a point in life where we just don't seem to care a lot anymore? I'm not really sure which one it might be. But phone lines are still open at 215-634-8065. And thanks for the work, Tyrone, that you are doing in registering people. We want to remind people that coming up on this Sunday, this weekend really, but this Sunday is Souls to the Polls Sunday. All around the city, there will be faith-based organizations, institutions, houses of worship that will be gathering at 4 different polling sites to register, to not to register to vote, but to cast their ballot early and to celebrate the privilege and the duty of voting. That's this coming Sunday. We'll be giving you more details as we go along. I'll be talking to individuals throughout the week who will be telling you about Souls to the Polls. There are activities taking place all this weekend. There will be food served, music to hear, clothing and hats will be given away. I mean, it's going to be a festive occasion as churches from all over the city, from all the way up at the northwest end of the city, with churches like Enon Tabernacle, Germantown Seventh-day Adventist Church. I know that church pretty well. Used to work there. Pastor there now is Orville Brissett. Mount Airy Church of God in Christ and others will be assisting in bringing people together, and they'll be going to the AB Day School on this coming Sunday. In West Philadelphia, churches like Mount Pisgah AME, Mount Carmel Baptist, the Bible Way Baptist, Stronghold, my own church, West Philadelphia Seventh-day Adventist, will be getting people over to Allen Locke School, where they will be celebrating the privilege of voting. And by doing so, we're going to demonstrate that the Christian community, now, let me say that differently, that the faith-based community of the city of Philadelphia is not locked into any one ideology, and that we are willing to recognize that our duties as people who believe, it doesn't preclude our voting. You know, voting is not something outside of our spiritual duties. Voting is a part of our spiritual duties. And we will be celebrating our exercising our franchise and doing that duty this coming weekend on Souls to the Polls weekend. Sunday the 25th, we're going to be doing it up in a big way. Keep listening right here, and I'll be telling you more about it as we go along. Then there's going to be, now coming up on Saturday, my understanding is there's going to be black men on motorcycles going through the city, preparing for Souls to the Polls. This weekend is going to be huge when it comes to getting people to remember that voting is not only a privilege, but it is a duty, an honorable duty. And we're going to do our best to make sure that you are aware of that duty. All right, folks. Let me bring to you another item of news that, why am I surprised? Your president and mine, President Donald J. Trump, is reported to have said this in another one of his ubiquitous tweets. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Fauci is a disaster. If I listened to him, we'd have 500,000 deaths," before later saying it would be 700,000 to 800,000 deaths. And then he continues on, "If there's a reporter on, you can have it just the way I said it. I couldn't care less." So reportedly, CNN got their hands on this quote by your president and mine. He said, "Anthony Fauci is a disaster. If I listened to him, we'd have 500,000 deaths," quote unquote. Then later on, he said it would be 700,000 to 800,000 deaths. And then he boastfully said, "Any reporter listening, you can have this. I couldn't care less." Well, you know that the president of the United States of America, who goes by the name of Donald Trump, I still can't believe that a reality show huckster is my president. I still can't believe that a man who lies and prevaricates as easily as a bird sings is my president. I can't believe it. That this man going around now having his rallies where he places himself front and center to the adoring hordes of people who apotheosize him as the greatest leader who ever lived. He's dancing around literally on the grave, or figuratively on the graves of 220,000 Americans who have died because we did not prepare well for this pandemic. I cannot believe that he is our president, but he is. But Anthony Fauci, who is the boss and the head of the department that handles infectious diseases, has pretty much come to the fore and said that the president is shameful for using comments that Fauci made as a part of his campaign material. That was just low. That was slimy low. But, you know, the Trump campaign did it. And he has also said that to have the kind of rallies that President Trump is having is irresponsible and dangerous. That it was only a matter of time before Donald Trump turned his invective toward Anthony Fauci. I mean, what else do you expect? If you don't worship at the shrine of President Donald Trump, you become his enemy. And that's what's happening now. I am embarrassed by the fact that this man is our president. I'm embarrassed by it, that this is the best we could do. But the thing that embarrasses me even more is that there are upwards of a third of the people in this nation who somehow or another feel that Donald Trump is a suitable person to be the leader of this nation. And what bothers me even more than that is that there are individuals who perceive that because he, quote, made the economy better, unquote, that end justifies the means. That making money is more important than decency and justice and equity and grace. I mean, Donald Trump, his lack of grace is so appalling as to turn one's stomach, sneering at people, insulting people. This is a man who made fun publicly of a person with a physical handicap and then lied about it. I am amazed that this man is our president, but I am more amazed that upwards of 25 to 30% of Americans somehow or another feel that he is fit for the job. We'll take a quick pause and then we'll come back. You're listening to 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD radio. This is Evening Word with Nick Taliaferro. We're back after this.
The pandemic is not only putting everyone's health at risk, it's also impacted our jobs and retirement security. And it's disproportionately affecting African Americans, especially those 50 plus. That's why AARP Pennsylvania is fighting for your voice to be heard. If you haven't voted yet, now is the time to learn about your voting options and cast your ballot. We're working to make sure you can vote safely, whether you choose to vote from home or in person. And if you choose to vote by mail, make sure you return your ballot using both envelopes. Your ballot goes in the smaller envelope for secrecy, and that goes into the larger envelope for mailing. Also, don't forget to sign the voter declaration on the back. Your voice matters. Make sure it's heard. Go to aarp.org/PA votes to learn about your voting options and how to vote safely this election. Visit aarp.org/PA votes today. Paid for by AARP.
Dietz & Watson has been making premium meats and artisan cheeses for over 80 years. And when it comes to stacking sandwiches and party platters, they've got something for everyone in the family, like maple honey turkey breast, American cheese, buffalo chicken, and more. So get to your local deli and taste 4 generations of family recipes. With Dietz & Watson on the table, you'll have everyone coming back for seconds and thirds. Dietz & Watson, it's a family thing since 1939.
COVID-19 impacted a lot of things this year, including regular vaccination appointments. Vaccines help protect you and everyone around you, especially during flu season. Schedule an appointment with your healthcare provider today to make sure you and your children are vaccinated. Vaccines keep us safe, and they work. Skip the flu this year. Get your vaccination today. Let's stay protected together. For more information, visit health.pa.gov, paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
The WURD Radio Newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio Newsletter. WURD TV. We're streaming live video of this conversation right now. Tune in on YouTube at onWURD or on Facebook at WURD. WURD TV. Black Talk Media. You're listening to Evening Words, hosted by Nick Taliaferro, exclusively on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD.
Hey, we're back with you, ladies and gentlemen. Coming along in just a few moments, Sincerely Sarita. Save a little space for her, ladies and gentlemen. She doesn't take up a lot of room. Just wants a little corner of your life from 7 o'clock until 9. Save space with Simply Sarita right here on 900 AM and 96.1 FM WURD. Final moments of Evening Word with Nick Taliaferro. Let's get right back to it. Phone lines open at 215-634-8065. Before we go any further, want to remind everybody that there are jobs available for people who want to work in polling places and who want to work in some of the satellite centers. And let me say this to you. We have 3 city commissioners, Lisa Dealey, Joe Schmidt, and Omar Sabir. There was a roundtable held, and we talked about it last week. There was a roundtable held last Thursday. My understanding is that 2 of the commissioners showed up late, very late, to the round table. This is a round table with ministers from all over the city. They showed up very late and then left early. I'm watching our commissioners. Most of you do not know what city commissioners do, but they are elected officials in the city of Philadelphia. Most of you do not know how much money they spend, but they have a budget. And their job is to oversee and to regulate and to monitor and to enforce election laws and to maintain safe elections in the city. Most of you do not know that they had $10 million to hire people to staff some of these stations. Now, this is what I've been hearing, and I want to find out because we have to hold their feet to the fire on this. You see, the city commissioners like to live cheek by jowl close to the ward leaders. The city of Philadelphia has a political construct that allows ward leaders to have an enormous amount of power in certain areas. I know firsthand. I ran for office for state representative during a special election where the ward leaders got a chance to select the people. And I know for a fact that the ward leaders were bought and paid for. And all of the ward leaders asked, almost all of them asked me the same question: how much money you got? I've never felt so fleeced by people who were supposedly doing the job to find the best person available. And to be honest with you, I would have been a good state rep. I'm telling you the truth. I would have been a decent state rep, but I couldn't pay them. And so they yielded to people who could. Now, here's the deal. The city commissioners are hiring people, but they're hiring people, I believe, who are being sent to them by the ward leaders, because Philadelphia is a patronage city. Folks get folks hired who know folks. And there are hundreds of people, maybe even thousands of people, who have tried to get these jobs to be, who are conscientious and decent people, trying to get jobs to basically, you're not going to get rich on these jobs, but they want to do their level best to help their city have fair elections. And the city commissioners are holding out, doling these jobs out to make sure that the ward leaders get their people in first. I'm going to find out if that's true. And if that's true, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to tear a new one for our friends over at the city commissioner's office. Watch me. Trust me. I'm looking forward to it, if it's true. If not, I yield, and I apologize for even suggesting that anything untoward could be going on. Let's get our final call of the day. Gary, if you're still there, thank you for your patience and welcome to the show.
Hey, hello, Nick. Thank you for taking my call.
Pleasure, my friend.
About the city you just talked about the city commissioner's office. I'm going to leave that alone. Let's be for real about the politics in this city, okay?
I hear you.
So we got to be honest about that. I worked in a capacity where I audited all these departments, so I'm just going to leave it there. But I want to go back to number 45.
Yes.
You know, why do we give him so much attention? First of all, he's tapped into the racism that has always existed in this country, and that's what we're dealing with right now. The man doesn't have the intelligence or the experience or the ability to really be in that office, but we know why he's there. And I'm going to say this.
No, really. I'd like for you to expand upon that. Why do you think he's there?
No. Because what I just said earlier. Racism in this country is so strong and so great. Now he's made it very fashionable to come out of the closet, so to speak.
I want you to dialogue with me. I want you to dialogue with me for a moment, and let me just play the advocate, the adversary for you. I want you to realize that the same country that voted him in voted in Barack Obama, and in many places it was the same constituencies that lent the votes to Donald Trump, who had voted just 4 years previously for Barack Obama.
Okay.
If racism is the cause, tell me how that factors.
How does that factor? You know what? President Obama being president, you know, it was a historic moment. We had a black president. But if you look at it, what really changed for the masses of our people?
That is not the question.
And now on the flip, wait a minute.
Hold on. The question is if racism is what led to Donald Trump. Remember, it was the same people who elected Donald Trump who elected Barack Obama. So it's not the results that we're looking at. We're asking, did all of those people become racist after they elected Barack Obama? Or did they forget they were racist when they elected Barack Obama? And I'm asking these questions not just to be argumentative. I want to really dig down deeper into what's driving a nation that would elect a Donald John Trump.
Well, you know, Nick, you know, some of those voters, yes, they voted for President Obama. But after that,
you said they voted for him and they said, oh, my Lord, I'm a racist. I forgot.
No. Right. That was a one-time experience, okay? And now it's like, okay, that should have never happened. We're going to make sure that never happens again. So
We
even
say,
some
Gary,
of those,
they took a 12-step program. They said, "Hi,
right.
I'm
Nick,
Derek. I'm a racist."
Hey, Nick, let me say this.
Okay.
Some of those people who support Donald Trump who don't look like you and I,
Yeah.
and if you've seen any of the interviews and the surveys, they are so poor that, I mean, they can't even see straight.
Mm-hmm.
However, they will go with Donald Trump because he's tapped into their racism, and he does not care about them, not one single bit. However, they will still vote for this man because he's appealing to their racism. If you've seen some of those people on TV, with no
Of course.
teeth in their
I mean,
mouth,
see him know some of them. I had an argument with one of them.
Wait a minute, Nick, and they can't even utter a sentence clearly. That tells you a lot about this country. And I want to just say this. When it comes to politics and politicians, whether they're white, black, Asian, or whatever they may be, and just use Philadelphia as an example, we're the poorest big city. The black community, the schools are terrible. The crime is terrible. Nick, what are they doing for us? If we don't learn to hold people accountable, regardless of their race and background, we're going to still continue to get the same exact thing, which is absolutely nothing. We better wake up, Nick.
Gary, look, I appreciate the call, man. You get a chance to put the ribbon on the end of the conversation for today. I still hold out and suggest to you, I believe that Donald Trump, that racism is a tool that he uses, and I do believe that he espouses bigoted ideas, but Donald Trump is more elitist than he is racist. But beyond that, I will submit to you, and one of the reasons I take us to task is because I submit to you that the America that voted for Barack Obama, same America that voted for Donald Trump, that it is not solely racism. There's something else that's great. One of it is xenophobia, the fear of the other. Another one is the idea of the fear of loss of entitlements. It's a lot more complex than just who likes black people, who likes white people, who doesn't like each other. And we'll do some more looking at that. We'll do a deep dive on this as we go forward. But right about now, it's time for me to get off the diving board. I can diveth no moreth because my timeth is overeth. Hey, want to thank Eric Nixon for holding things down for us at the controls there in the studio, keeping things all on the up and up. We want to thank our guest today for being a part of our program, Tamara Edwards of Channel 6 News. Tamara, did I say? Tamala Edwards. Thank you for joining us earlier in the program. Lynn Washington and Minister Rodney Muhammad. Alex P.A., thank you for joining us. All of our callers, you are golden to us. We deeply appreciate your being on board. My name is Nick Taliaferro. I'm so glad to spend this time with you. We'll be with you Monday through Thursday here on Evening Word on your favorite conversation station, 96.1 and 900 AM WURD. Stay with us, folks. Safe space now. Sincerely, Sarita comes your way at 7 o'clock. Have a good one, folks, and I'll talk to you again tomorrow.